Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lee County Board of County Commissioners this morning. Thank you very much. If everybody could find their seats, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This morning, I'd like to begin with the invocation and Pastor Nick Yantorn from Rise Christian Church. Pastor, if you're here, would you please come to the podium and help us begin with prayer? Would everyone please stand?
Good morning. Would you please bow your heads for prayer? Father, thank you for the privilege of this gathering. Thank you for the men and the women whom have gone before us with the vision of making this county and its respective communities a place that we are all able to call home. Thank you for these men, Commissioners Ruane, Pendergrass, Sandelli, Hammond, Greenwell, and their teams that have willingly taken the mantle in serving this county and its great citizens. Please grant them vision and wisdom as they work to further strengthen our communities. Father, we invite you into this room today to lead and guide, to impart your wisdom to navigate these items at hand. Bring your spirit of unity to those issues that may bring tension and differing points of view, and help us all to be quick to listen and slow to speak. When we do speak, may our words be rooted in truth, seasoned with grace, and offered in love. Open eyes to see the threats to the well-being of the citizens of Lee County and to confront those threats with resolve. Grant a heart of wisdom in stewarding the resources given and established, the fiscal, the natural, and the human, and bring strength and courage to do what's right and good, even if it's hard. Lord, may your will be done here as it is in heaven. We praise you, we thank you, we honor you, and we are so grateful for the incredible grace that comes through Jesus Christ, our Savior and King, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated this morning. All right, and we'll begin this morning with some ceremonial presentations. The first one, I would like to recognize Commissioner Pendergrass for our Pet of the Month.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. If I could have the animal service personnel come up, Karen and Pablo. We have a special guest in the house this morning. He is adorable. And Karen, if you could tell us what's
This is Harry Pupper, and he got his name from our Flip This Kennel event this past Saturday. He was in our Quidditch entry, and he surprisingly was not adopted, so he's still available. He's 5-month-old hound mix, so he's available this month for $25. We have Spring into Love this month. All adult dogs and cats are just $25. And today is World Stray Day. So today is the day where we recognize stray animals that are available in shelters all across the country. And we are full on our dog adoption floor. And kitten season's just about to start, so come on down to Animal Services, and Harry Pupper is available.
I'm sure you got plenty of puppies right now for everybody. And
We
sure
do.
In a few months we'll have a lot of rabbits. We were talking about that earlier this morning.
We
in the shelter.
definitely will.
Being Easter month this month, I'm sure there'll be a lot of rabbits coming in the next few months. So anybody watching, please come out to our shelters and adopt. So it's a whole lot better for the animals. Only $25 to adopt, though, correct?
Correct, for dogs and cats, and rabbits are only $5. We were talking about that. So if you're looking for a rabbit, or right now we have a hedgehog.
Really?
Yes, we do. We have a hedgehog available, so.
Name him Sonic?
Yeah, it is, he's got a unique name. I'm drawing a blank. He does have a unique name. He does have a unique name. The sheriff's office just put him out as their furry friend Friday, but I said it was more their picky friend, but you know.
We'll thank you, and hopefully he'll find a good one.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully somebody in the audience may take him home.
Oh, it's Edgar Allan Poke is his name. I just remember his name. Edgar Allan Poke.
Very good.
Okay, well, thank you again, Karen.
you.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pendergrass. Good luck, Harry Pupper. All right, for our next presentation this morning, we'd like to recognize Autism Acceptance Month, and I'd like to recognize Commissioner Ruane to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. People from Family Initiative here. You want to gather at the podium, I'll gladly read the resolution. We'll grab a photo, and we'll ask you to take some things. I'll wait another minute. No problem. Take your time. The resolution reads as follows. Whereas April is International Autism Acceptance Month, a time where our nation reflects on unique skills individuals with autism spectrum disorder share within our community. And whereas Family Initiative is instrumental in serving children, adolescents, and young adults in autism spectrum through support programs, clinical services, education, and advocacy. This work is done in collaboration with the Agency for Persons with Disability, the Department of Children and Families, the Agency of Healthcare and Administration. And whereas the Family Initiative proudly offers these services throughout Southwest Florida with support from Southwest Florida Community Foundation, the United Way, Henry Glades, and Okeechobee counties. And whereas Family Initiative reports serving over 2,000 unique families throughout Southwest Florida each year and continues to grow to meet the needs of autism community. And whereas it is critical that we provide individuals on the autism spectrum access to these resources and opportunities they need to reach their full potential and assist them in being successful in all environments. And whereas each year in April, Family Initiative hosts numerous countywide events to recognize and support individuals on the autism spectrum throughout our community, along with individual businesses and community stakeholders who support our mission. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Board of County Commissioners, Lee County, Florida, hereby proclaim April 2023 as Autism Acceptance Month. It's duly signed by our Chairman, Brian Hammond.
Congratulations. Come take a picture with us. Congratulations.
Let's grab a photo.
We'll get everybody centered up here.
Someone get in the middle. Thank you. Someone wants to speak from Family Initiative?
Yeah. Would somebody, yes, feel free to share a
Please.
few words.
Thank you.
So on behalf of Family Initiative, we want to extend our gratitude to Lee County for this morning recognizing autism families. I'm thrilled to be joined by our board of directors. So I have Amber Zollinger, who's accompanied by her husband, Chad, Marianne DeVivo, who's on our board, Chad Wolf, Anjali Van Dree, who's Jessica Van Hart, and Jessica Van Hart. Behind the tall guy. So we really appreciate all the support the county and the state extend our organization. Our organization has grown exponentially, is kind of borne out by the data. One of the pieces that I just want to share this morning with our community, last year when we were here, we talked about the fact that the Center for Disease Control reported that 1 in 44 kids in the U.S. is diagnosed on the autism spectrum. Just 2 weeks ago, a new report came out from the Center for Disease Control that reported 1 in 36 children are now diagnosed on the autism spectrum. We also see inside that research that was released, they expect that number to increase again. So we are getting to the point where 1 child in every classroom in Lee County now will be diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And the significance of the work and the leadership of our board of directors and our entire team to meet the need of these families. As our community continues to grow exponentially and this prevalency rate increases, we know the demand for our services are going to grow exponentially, and the support of the county, the United Way, and everyone else is critical. So we really appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. County Manager. Okay. All right, on our recap, it says that we had a walk-on of a ceremonial presentation recognizing National Bike Month. Without objection, I'm going to go ahead and add that to the agenda right now, and I'm going to recognize Commissioner Sandelli to present National Bike Month.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is kind of special to me. I am an avid bike rider. In fact, I was in the saddle at about 3 hours ago in the dark. So I try to start each day when I can do that. I don't know if there's anybody here that wants to come up to the podium, but please do. Here's a resolution. Whereas National Bike Month has been celebrated since 1956 and was established to showcase the many benefits of cycling, and whereas Florida is ideally suited for residents and visitors to cycle, with an average of 237 sunny days per year, along with many scenic locations available to riders. And whereas Lee County has invested substantial funds in developing bicycle facilities and currently maintains approximately 1,217 miles of on and off trail bike paths and lanes. And whereas bicyclists from all over the globe visit Lee County to enjoy the extensive cycling facilities thus having a positive impact on Lee County's economy and tourist industry. And whereas national health organizations and physical fitness activities promote increased cycling as a way to improve health, quality of life, and boost community spirit. And whereas an increase in the use of bicycles in place of motor vehicles has a positive environmental impact by decreasing the greenhouse gas emissions and reducing pollution in Lee County. And whereas Lee County encourages bicycle safety education for bicyclists and motorists, including the rules of the road and benefits of wearing helmets to ensure the safety and well-being of all. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners adopted a complete streets resolution on November 10th, 2009 to integrate bicycling, walking, and public transit with the county's transportation program. Now, therefore, it will be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, does hereby declare May 23rd to be Bike Month as Lee County and, come on up, and encourages residents and visitors to participate in the following events throughout the month. Ride a Bike Day, Sunday, May 7th, Bike to School, May 3rd, Bike to Work Week, May 15th to 21st, Bike to Work Day, Friday, 19th of May. Duly executed this 4th day of April 2023 by our chairman, Brian Hammond.
Happy National Bike Month. Way to go.
I saw your mom and sister the other day. I saw your mom and sister the other day. Thank you. If anybody would like to say a few words of everything, ride safe.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for a very nice proclamation for us. Many of us are cyclists around the area. I've been very fortunate in of latter years of my life to be able to ride different parts of the country, and am appalled at the amount of money people don't spend on this. Here in Lee County, though, you guys have really helped in improving all of our bike facilities, whether it be a bike path, bike lanes. Anytime you do a road improvement, you're bringing in the complete streets, and we so appreciate that. We won't even get into the dangers of cycling, but the health parts, the benefits for all of us, and as a tourist destination is perfect. So if you don't cycle, it is a lot safer than you think. You have spent so much money and got so many miles of bike paths that people can ride with their families and enjoy. So for that, we very much appreciate the support that you have for all of us here in Lee County. Thank you.
Thank you. Ride safe, and let me leave this with you.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Wheaton, there you go.
Be safe out there.
Thank you again. Very good. Thank you, Mr. County Manager. Okay, put that over here. All right, so the next item on our agenda is to take up the recap. This is where we talk about any revisions or corrections or additions and deletions that need to be made to the agenda. We have two items that we'll need action on, Commissioners. I need a motion to defer item number C20 as outlined on the recap to the April 18th board meeting. And public hearing number 3 needs a revision as outlined on the recap. Does somebody wish to make that motion?
Gladly will make that motion.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any public comment on the revisions and corrections or the deferment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Is there any further discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, then we'll ask, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. All right, so that takes care of the recap. And just a note, because I know we've got a lot of public comment cards, the Civic Center update will take place under the county manager items portion of the agenda. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have anything you'd like to pull for discussion?
I do not.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Not to pull it, I just want to recognize 3 of the agenda items. I'd like to recognize item number 7, where the estate of the Wellner family is donating $88,000 to the Animal Services of Lee County. Item number 8, which is where the estate of Barbara McCulloville is donating $3,900 to the Animal Services. And also item number 9, where the state of Robert Holmes is donating $161,000 to Lee County Human Services. So thank you to their families for their contribution to Lee County.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Pendergrass. I have no items to pull for discussion. Commissioner Sandelli? No. Commissioner
I do
Roy?
not.
Okay, so no items have been pulled for discussion. Does anybody wish to make public comment on any of the consent agenda items? Now, that would be items number 1 through 39 on the agenda. I do have one card, which highlights items 12 and 13. That would be Marcia Ellis. So, Ms. Ellis, please come forward to the podium.
Good morning, gentlemen. Marcia Ellis, and I am going to speak about item 12, which is the adopt a resolution and approve property exchange with South Florida Water Management District. I'm speaking about this land swap that's taking place after being involved in other actions regarding this location, knowing of the importance of this particular parcel hydrologically speaking. And I did make 4 copies of maps, which I'm going to give to you guys based on the mic sheet, which is the hydrologic studies. I will point out that what you're looking at is an ancient shoreline, and that low spot that you see is right at the location where we're talking about managing stormwater. So whenever I had this explained to me by a hydrogeologist, that this is a really important special place in our county and in our community when we start talking about hydrologic flows. We have a really high water table at that location, and we have quite a bit of elevation change by Florida standards. So we have an enormous amount of water basically moving into a bowl, into a depression. And this particular area has been under extensive study, flood study, hydrologic study, and any land swaps and changes, I think, are due special attention as we work to manage this area in the future, and we anticipate sea level rise going forward, pushing in from Bonita. I will also say that it's really a little unclear about the 90-foot easement that runs along the western side of the property, if that easement is going to be for a road or if it's also going to help manage the flow. I speak about this from the comprehensive plan amendment that was put forth in 2020 that stated there would be limited commercial development at this location based on a previous approval for a doomed trailer park, which never developed on literally the most environmentally sensitive piece in southeast Lee County. So I think that having full disclosure about the role of this parcel in managing that stormwater is really important. I want to know the flows being managed, that it's not just access back to a ginormous stormwater pond, and just be a little bit more informed about what sort of development is going to go into managing that stormwater. Is it going to be wetlands? Is it going to be compensatory storage in the form of a large lake? So I would like to get more information about that. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this forth.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes any public comment cards that I have on the consent agenda items. Has anybody else come on items 1 through 39, the consent agenda? Okay, I see no speakers, so we'll close public comment at this time. Does anybody on the board wish to make a motion?
Move the item.
So we have a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda by Commissioner Pendergrass, and the second is from Commissioner Greenwell. Commissioners, do we have any discussion on any of the items on the consent agenda?
I would just like to relate to the items that spoke about public comment, item number 12. That item is actually for limited partnership between the owner of a dismissal investor's appeal. It's not a land swap, nor has it anything with water flows. It's an agreement between the parties for appeal process.
Yeah, I believe she was speaking on item 13, even though she called it 12. It was actually 13.
Okay, just make this
But very good correction. Yeah. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections to the motion? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. There is no administrative agenda today, so we'll go right into the public hearings. And at this time, I'd like to recognize our county attorney's office to introduce the first public hearing item.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson, County Attorney's Office. I have your first two public hearings this morning. These items have been duly advertised, and I provided the affidavits of publication to the clerk. Item 1 is a petition to vacate the public's interest in a portion of the unimproved public utility and drainage easements centered along the common property lot lines between lots 45 and 46, and between lots 46 and 47 at 1043 Alcove Street in Lee High Acres. There are no objections to the requested vacation, and staff's available for any questions.
All right, very good. Commissioners, do you have any questions for our staff at this time? Okay, thank you. Mr. Halverson, thank you very much. At this time, I'll call for public comment on this item. Has anyone come on this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close public comment. Commissioners, does somebody wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwald. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
From Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, please introduce item number 2.
Thank you. Item 2 is also a petition to vacate the public's interest in a portion of the unimproved public utility easement centered along the common property lot line between lots 7 and 8 of the platted lots at 2507 27th Street West in Lehigh Acres. There were no objections to the requested vacation, and staff's available for any questions.
Very good. Any questions, Commissioners? All right. Has anyone come to speak in this public hearing on the 27th Street West vacation? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close public comment. Are there any comments, Commissioners, or does somebody wish to make a motion?
I will move the item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Greenwell, second from Commissioner Ruane. Any further discussion on that? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. All right, please introduce item number 3.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Swindle at the County Attorney's Office. I have your public hearings 3, 4, and 5 this morning, and each of these have been legally advertised. Public hearing number 3 is to adopt an amendment to the Lee County Noise Control Ordinance regarding Captiva Island. Specifically, the amendment would prohibit outdoor amplified music or noise disturbances that are plainly heard from a receiving property at a distance of 50 feet between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. These amendments were directed by the board back in May, and there is a representative from the Captiva Community Panel should you have any questions.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on this item?
No.
No? Okay, very good. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. I have no speaker cards, but does anyone wish to speak in public comment on this public hearing? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment.
I'll gladly move the item.
Commissioner Ruane moves approval. Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Please introduce the next one.
Public hearing number 4 is to adopt an amendment to the parking ordinance regarding Captiva Island. Specifically, this amendment would provide an exemption for the parking of vehicles owned by the Captiva Erosion Protection Division and for designated areas where the Department of Transportation posts signs allowing parking during limited times. And again, representative from the Captiva Community Panel is here if you have any questions.
Any questions, Commissioners, on this one? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for public comment. I have no speaker cards, but has anyone come to speak in public comment on this one? Okay, we'll close public comment. Commissioners?
Gladly move the item.
Commissioner Ruane makes the motion for approval.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have any discussion on this? Do we have any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. And please introduce item 5.
Thank you. Public hearing number 5 is a proposed amendment to a Lee County Ordinance 09-22 regarding the use of golf carts on Captiva Island. Specifically, this amendment would require golf carts that are leased or rented for use on Captiva to display a decal with rules of the road, essentially. Specifically, the sticker would have to advise clients that unlicensed drivers, open alcoholic containers, driving on the beach and on rolled shoulders and outside of permitted golf cart zones would be prohibited. Rental companies would also be required to provide these rules in writing to their clients.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions on this item?
A question about enforcement for that.
Commissioner Pendergrass, you're recognized.
I mean, I don't know if you could answer this or maybe staff. Who would be enforcing this? So if the deputy gets transferred from Lehigh Acres to Captiva for the day and comes across a golf cart, without a permit, who issues a citation? Is it a code enforcement issue or is it law enforcement?
So in the development of this ordinance, representatives from the Captiva Community Panel were in discussion with the Lee County Sheriff's Office representative who does patrol Captiva, and they have been advised that the Sheriff's Office is prepared to enforce this ordinance.
So they're going to write them a state citation, or are they going to write them a county ordinance?
They would write a citation based on this county ordinance.
Again, okay, I know I've had a discussion with the sheriff's department, as far as enforcement, some of this is we're creating today, it's going to help, but it's also going to create a nightmare for the, for law enforcement who's not going to enforce it. Because officer discretion is going to fall in place, so make sure I point that out publicly, so, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Any further questions on this item? All right, thank you. Seeing no further questions, I have no speaker cards on this item. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on this one? Okay, I see no speakers then. Are there any, let's come back to the board. Any discussion, commissioners?
I'll gladly move the item.
All right, Commissioner Ruane moves the item for approval, and the second is from Commissioner
I'd like
Pendergrass.
to recognize the Captiva panel for working with our staff and our county staff working with them, bringing this all forward, so thank you.
Absolutely. Sounds like it was a very smooth process. Any further discussion then on the item? All right, are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We're doing a quick mic swap out. All right, very good. All right, that concludes our public hearings agenda. We have already taken care of the walk-on earlier under the ceremonials. So there are no further walk-ons or carryovers, Mr. DeJarlais, that you wish to speak about at this time?
No, sir, no more today.
Okay, very good. So we'll move to commissioner items. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any items that you'd like to talk about today?
No, Commissioner.
All right, Commissioner Pendergrass, any items today?
No items.
Okay, Commissioner Sandelli? Commissioner Ruane?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a task force update. First and foremost, to make it easier, I do have a list in the task force. We asked for all the branches to have alternates, as well as in the task force itself. There was some changing of people that I need to read into the record. The rest will actually be just updates for alternates, which I'll obviously give to yourself, Mr. Chairman, for the record. The 3 substitutions, Village of Estero actually substituted John McLean because obviously their mayor is termed out. Town of Fort Myers Beach, Mayor Allers actually asked to have Bill Beast there. And the city of Sanibel, the new mayor is Richard Johnson, continued to ask that Holly Smith be on there. All the other people on the task force are just alternates, so I'm going to hand it to you. My motion will be to move all these items with the list that's included.
All right, so we have a motion for those appointments from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion? Do we have any objection? Seeing no objections, that carries unanimously.
Thank you. Along with the task force, just wanted to give everyone an update. All 8 branches were up and running. There's over 100 people that actually participated. I can't thank the region enough, the mayors, the elected officials, and other civic leaders. The task force had second meeting on the 24th. Obviously, the big announcement was it was announced that we were awarded $1.1 billion in Community Development Block Grant. Obviously, that will go through a process that goes through a registry that is anticipated to take 60 days. Then we'll actually get the award letter. Those funds will obviously help, our crucial issue with housing and infrastructure. Staff will obviously continue to work on priorities for these branches. We'll continue to obviously want to hear what the expectations are. As we do that, we'll form that and come into this body to talk about things. The good news is the engagement for the community has been very much involved. On housing alone, there was an event called On the Table. There was over 500 participants. So obviously workforce housing is something we all desperately need. And following up, there will be 16 town hall meetings. They're scheduled throughout the county in the month of April to May. They're published. They'll be certainly published. Obviously on our website in resilientlead.org. I'm happy to see the progress we have. That'll be my report as that is concerned. I'll move over to the Tallahassee trip. I forward to each commissioner a list of items that are in for budget purposes. I guess the first and foremost thing that all the Senate members had told me that the most important thing is the amount has to at least be put in the budget. If it's not put in the budget, it's not going to be part of the discussion. Some of the highlights is that there's $350 million that actually is going to be this catch-all to allow us the opportunity to have a pot of money to address hurricane items. Every item on this list, predominantly most of the bridges that we talked about, traffic signals, stop signs, are all in the Senate's budget and obviously funded in their budget initially. What takes place, I met with House members from the Speaker's office, from the Appropriations Chair, from the resiliency side, advocated and just indicated I don't understand why they would be in Senate budget, not necessarily the House budget. They told me the most important thing that's in one of the budgets, they'll obviously reconcile this during the reconciliation conference. I was assured not only by the Speaker, by the Approach Chair, as well as the Resiliency Chair, that all these items will be funded. The good news, honestly, is that if the Sanibel Bridges and the Resiliency members for our 20% match, the Pine Island, obviously, and those bridges and the matches, Little Hickory and Big Hickory, as well as stoplights, street signs, and traffic lights are all in there. There's also a separate item that's not listed on this because it's already in the budget, both in the House and the Senate, for beach renourishment. That'll satisfy that. So when I look at beach renourishment north of $50 million, when I look at the $350 million in the TED and these items, we're close to $500 million. The last thing that Senator Albritton has requested, and I'll work with staff and certainly with you commissioners, is to put together what they would like to see as a 5-year CIP plan from us. What are we going to need in the next 5 years relative to the construction? Ask for money on projects that we can actually get accomplished. Try not to ask for things that aren't going to be done to year 3 or year 4. The good news is I remind everybody that Kathleen Pasadoma is the Senate President. She's in for 2 years, so she'll be in for 1 more year. And then Senator Albritton, who's a Resiliency Chair, will actually be president for the next 2 years. So the next 3 years, we certainly have local representation that's here. All the meetings were very, very productive. Everyone told me that I'm too anxious and I should just make this process work. I said my job is to run down every ground ball to make sure it is that. I'm an old-fashioned accountant. Until I actually have the check, we're not going to be satisfied. So it was a really productive meeting. Honestly, everybody embraced us. We met with the governor's office, who's 100% behind this and going to do everything he can from his power, as well as Kevin Guthrie. Met with Kevin Guthrie, and he said he's doing everything to make sure that Lee County is not forgotten about, not today, not tomorrow. The last thing that I'll just bring to everyone's edification, which I think we can address, I did ask to have the amendments for the HUD pulled from this item. We were notified we're going to see $1.1 billion. I thought we could have a little bit, staff is going to make some amendments, but I thought we could have a little bit of a discussion about that. There's a memorandum of understanding that's been given out to many people that were seeing HUD awards. I just want to make sure we quantify what the memorandum of understanding. Right now, currently, in our task force, 5% of that could be for management fees, and 15% of that could be for staffing and other alternatives. If that be the case, that would be 20%. I have 4 or 5 different memorandums of understandings from other states. They generally come in at around 10 or 11%, not only the governor's office, but obviously Department of Emergency Management strongly urged that we obviously keep that. What you need to be cognizant of is the $1.1 billion, if we come up with a 10% amount for the fees, that'll come off the top, so then we're actually only going to be working with approximately $900 million. So that's how that works in that regard. So that's why it's important. We just need to try to work towards a memorandum of understanding. I was uncomfortable with the amendments as they are. Do we have a memorandum of understanding and said contract of an understanding? I really was not comfortable with that. So those are my reports. I just wanted to bring an update to you. If there's any questions, I'll gladly answer them.
Any questions, commissioners?
I'd like to thank you, Commissioner, for all the work you're doing in Tallahassee and spending your time. And obviously, you're doing a great job. And I'm proud of you, and thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Thank you, Commissioner, for all the hard work you're putting in up there. One question, and maybe I'll get an update on it later if you don't have it right now from the staff, but where did they land on the property tax rebates? Are they going to make us whole for those, or are they expecting us to cover those?
No, they're making us whole on those.
Excellent.
So part of the discretionary funds that we have is what they call is the TED money, which is $350 million. So we have the opportunity to utilize that. The good news in the way this is going down, honestly, is it's coming to the county. Excellent. Okay, so the money will actually come there. I certainly advocated that I think that the $350 million was light, but the good news, it's in the budget, so everything's up for discussion. The Senate President, as well as Senator Albritton, just indicated, was there a particular amount? I'm going to work with Matt Caldwell to continue to make sure we understand what that number looks like, and Noel Browning to understand what that is, and try to work with staff so we could have some more input. Chris Cheney's done a great job, and obviously being our ally, and obviously someone that lobbying up there, as we continue to give them information, we can make that crystal clear what our ask is. But right now, I'm comfortable with where we are. All the items that we've talked about from revenue replacement are there. There's opportunities for some funding. They did on one of the loans that was due in 12 months, they extended to 24 months. So that gives us a little bit more room. Most people wanted 36 months for that. So that is an interest-free loan that we, the county and all of the cities could apply for funding. So it's, again, interest-free for the period of time. So there's opportunities not only from the pot of money, but obviously from the loan to obviously apply for interest-free funds that obviously are available through the state. So.
Good deal. Commissioner Sandelli.
Again, thank you very much for all the work and the time and so on and so forth. I just wanted to pick up on something you said. There was a 5% management fee and a 15% staffing.
Correct.
Okay. And then you said that seemed high compared to some other areas.
So the gentleman that presented it said that is not the norm.
Okay.
Okay. In states of Puerto Rico, Alabama, New York, South Carolina, there was a memorandum of understanding with said contractor of what that amount would look like. So you would negotiate that. Obviously, a long time ago when we did our RFP, we just indicated we obviously selected a contract. It's just a discussion that I certainly brought to staff's attention. Haggerty certainly indicated that that's not their intent, but I would just like it quantified in a memorandum of understanding so we know exactly what we're getting.
So there's an opportunity to have some clarity to that brought forward.
100% clarity on that point, yes. And before the award is actually given, so the registry has to be filed, and then we'll receive the award.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, thank you. Does that conclude your commissioner items, Commissioner Ruane? Okay.
That does. Thank you very much.
Very good. I have two items real quickly. The first item is a request to sign a letter of support for Home Base Florida Veterans and Family Care. They're requesting that we put our support behind Senate Bill 1995 and House Bill 1464. This is a program that our Human and Veteran Services have used for years, and I understand the board has offered support for this group before, and so they've got a request in to provide evidence-based, life-saving mental health care and wellness programs for veterans, service members, military-connected families, and families of the fallen. And so, Commissioners, with your approval, I will sign that letter as the chair and send it off to Tallahassee.
I'll move that item.
Motion for approval from Commissioner Wayne and the seconds from Commissioner Sandelli. Is there any discussion on that?
No, sir. As a veteran, I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Thank you, Ray. All right. Anybody wish to comment on that letter then? Okay, I see no public comment then. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, so we'll get that signed and on its way to Tallahassee. And then finally, just wanted to give a brief update. I mentioned that I was going to Washington, D.C. At the last commission meeting. We had a very successful and productive trip. Perhaps some of the highlights of the trip. The strategy was, when we got hit by Hurricane Ian on September 28th, many of the programs from the Federal Emergency Management Agency were slated to end at the 6-month mark from landfall. And so that was going to be March 28th. So my strategy was, let's go up a week before and make sure if there's anything hung up that hasn't been extended that needs to be extended, we got a chance to talk with them about it. And FEMA did announce while we were there, they granted us a 90-day extension on our temporary shelter assistance program. That ensures that affected residents will have a safe place to stay now as they continue to recover from the hurricane. Secondly, you might remember the letter that was sent to us from FEMA on February 14th, where they questioned the methodology by our property appraiser and kind of made the whole permitting process very uncertain about what value we should use to calculate the 50% rule. They have issued a very strong letter saying they now no longer stand by that letter, that they recommend we can continue to use our property appraisers' values. So that went well. And then I met with Senator Rubio and Scott's offices, and I also met with Congressman Byron Donalds, Congressman Greg Stubbe, and Congressman Vern Buchanan. All of the meetings were great. We've got a tremendous amount of support from folks in our Florida delegation up there in Washington, D.C., and Congressman Buchanan and Stubbe are both on the Ways and Means Committee, and they also addressed that they're looking at the federal tax situation related to any losses with Hurricane Ian. So I think, if I remember correctly from those conversations, they were recommending people who might need those, that kind of a tax situation, that they extend while the federal government can get, I guess, legislation passed that would take care of their tax situation for this year. So
That's my report from Washington. Any questions I can answer? Or? No?
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Obviously, it sounds like everything that we had consternation over you addressed. I'll be looking forward to the disaster loss to see if that actually goes through. But there's some guidance in that, so it gives some people some relief. That'll be instrumental. But thank you for going. Appreciate you representing Lee County.
very good, happy to do it.
All right. Well, then at this time, we'll move to committee appointments. Commissioner Greenwell, do you have any appointments to make?
Not today, Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Pendergrass, any appointments?
Yes, I think I have 4 reappointments. I have reappointment of Melissa Giovanni to the Affordable Housing, reappointment of Randy Zabata, Value Adjustment Board, reappointment of Stephanie Sirianni to Tanglewood Improvement Unit, and reappointment of Cindy Roberts to Tanglewood Improvement Units.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do we have any discussion on that? Do we have any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Sandelli, anything?
Yes, I've got 3 new appointments and 1 reappointment. The reappointment is for Betty Simpson on the Fort Myers Beach Parks and Recreation Services. A new appointment, Karen Farrell for Northeast Hurricane Bay MSTU. New appointment, Craig O'Donnell, Town and River Improvement Unit. And new appointment, Christopher Clausen for Old Pelican Bay Channel MSP. And I think that's it.
Very good. So the motion's from Commissioner Sandelli and the second is from Commissioner Ruane. Do we have any discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Ruane?
I only have 1 reappointment. It's to Parks and Recreation Services. It's Lisa Benton.
Okay, very good. The motion's from Commissioner Ruane. Second's from Commissioner Sandelli. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. I will need a motion and a second on this. I would like to reappoint Kirk Woodbury to the Parks and Recreation Services Committee.
So moved.
Motion from Commissioner Ruane and the second's from Commissioner Greenwell. Any discussions? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, folks. All right. At this time, we will take up county manager items. Mr. DeJarlais, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. We have 2 items we'd like to discuss with you today. And we'll take the easiest one first. You recall 2 weeks ago, we were in a workshop with you to discuss and give an update, 6-month update on Hurricane Ian activities and repairs and programs around Lee County. One of the conversations that we spent some time on with you was the repair of traffic signals and intersections and controller boxes and all those things. At the time, we didn't have a very complete understanding of what would or would not be reimbursed, but you asked us to come back to you with a plan to expedite repairs and also with a repair number that we could recommend and you might consider money to put at risk. We now understand the reimbursement process far better than we did 2 weeks ago between FEMA and the Federal Highway Administration. So this morning you received an email from Mr. Harner on this topic, and in there he describes for you a plan in working with Lee County DOT for repairs. And I'm going to ask Dave to talk with you about that now, and then we have a request at the end of his conversation.
Thank you, Roger. Good morning, Commissioners. As Roger just mentioned, at the March 7th workshop, we had an Ian update on traffic signals. And one of the conversations was how to move quickly and get the detection system back up so we can get traffic flowing a little bit better. What we've done, just to give you an update following that meeting, on March 20th, we submitted our packet to, our level 2 assessment, damage assessment to Florida Federal Highway. It's been with them for 2 weeks. We've also have engaged our federal lobbyist, Ballard and Partners, to go ahead and help push that through. We're hoping to get that soon. That cost is roughly about $4.3 million, and that's for all traffic signal repairs. We've also worked internally on fixing some of those temporary repairs. That was roughly about $50,000. Since that was in our budget authority, we went ahead and did that as well. So that is happening now in conjunction with what the state is doing with their repairs. Hopefully that shows a little bit of reprieve on some of the traffic congestion. The next piece that you asked us to do is the full repair of the detection system. That is roughly $775,000. to repair. We believe that will be a little less. Some of that is reimbursable. We're still working with Federal Highway to figure out what is and what isn't, but at the max, it would be $775,000 to repair the detection system. The lead time to get the equipment is roughly 6 to 12 weeks. So as soon as we get if we get approval today, we'll be ordering the equipment today. So our request is we would like to waive the formal procurement process, authorize staff to spend up to $775,000 on purchasing and repair of the detection system at the affected traffic signals.
Okay, so Commissioners, we have a motion that's been requested by our Deputy County Manager. Does somebody wish to make that motion?
I gladly will with one additional piece of information. So gladly will pass that inside the House budget, actually not only budget but passed, there's traffic signals to the amount of $4.7 million on the state budget. So the only additional expenditure, if I've listened to Deputy Hardin, would be the $775,000 if obviously they budget this money, which it seems like they did. So it'll take care of your 4.3.
So the motion for approval of Mr. Harner's motion from Commissioner Ruane, second from Commissioner Sandelli. Do you have any further questions or discussion, Commissioners, on this item before I take public comment?
I support the action, but anything to improve traffic as soon as possible. This is expedite the process as soon as possible. So thank you.
Agreed. Commissioner Greenwell, any comments?
I feel the same way. The quicker, the better. Hurry up, Mortar.
All right,
I
amen.
think traffic is always top of mind for all of us and stuff like this, so the ability to move traffic better, and also to put this, to advance this, because if you saw the paper today above the fold, other hurricanes may come our way, so it's as much as we can get done to alleviate the problem going forward as well. I'd support, so thank you for the work.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, does somebody wish to make any public comment on this motion? Yes. Okay, and please state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Marcia Ellison. I would just like to comment about a situation on Alico Road at Ben Hill Griffin. That traffic light, I know you guys have been working with the timing of those. It is literally 5 seconds. And the problem is we have so many dump trucks, which we know take a while to build up speed. It took me 2 times to get through this morning. Their dump trucks are backed up, and what's going to end up happening is a fatal accident right there. As the dump trucks, they need to get paid, they need to get to their job site and dump off their fill or their rock or gravel or whatever. They need to get onto the interstate, and what's going to happen is they're going to push it through that light, and then someone's going to run into them. So as we're prioritizing things, I think that is needs some attention. The trees are nice going in on Alico Road, I get that, but I think this is really a matter of public safety, and I thank you for the opportunity to call it to your attention.
Thank you. So that was Alico Road and Ben Hill Griffin? Yes, sir. Okay, very good. We'll take I'm sure our staff will take a look at that. Light being too short. Okay, very good. Any further public comment on this before we vote on it? Okay, very good. I see no further public comment. Commissioners, any further discussion? Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners. Second item for discussion today is the Lee County Civic Center. If you know, this is not a new discussion, as we all know. It actually started a couple of years ago and was prompted by late Commissioner Mann. And the discussion was about the term of the existing management contract, along with what opportunities might there be for redevelopment of that entire property. It is old and worn out, and it's 100 acres of incredibly valuable property that no matter what happens, I would recommend that we continue along with the process to, for redevelopment in the not too distant future. But I'm going to ask Ms. Brady to make the presentation this morning so that we can give you enough data to hopefully make some decisions today. Chris?
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you. We have a few slides that we've put together for you to provide you an update on the Civic Center, as well as some of the actions that have taken place since our last board meeting. Next slide, please. So we're going to start off with just a map with all of the different buildings and facilities that are out at the Civic Center. This map can be found on our website. We do have a website that is set up, and it's legov.com/Civic Center. And then if you want to go to the next slide, we just put some pictures together of The primary facilities that are utilized for event purposes. So this is the Civic Center, and it is showing you some of the life safety, healthy issues that we have at the Civic Center. Next slide, please. Whaley Hall, as you will recall from our last meeting, suffered substantial damage from Hurricane Ian and is therefore, at this point, you can see from the roof and the ceiling damage that that is not something that can be turned around quickly. Next slide, please. Davidson House is one of the primary locations that our 4-H youth program uses. There's been a number of conversations. Commissioner Greenwell has met with 4-H as well as our IFAS agent from University of Florida with staff a few weeks ago to talk to them about what their needs are, as well as to reiterate the board's commitment to our 4-H youth program and wanting to ensure that we were going to continue to have facilities for our 4-H youth in the same manner that we do all other youth programs here in Lee County that we organize and support through our Parks and Recreation programs. Next slide, please. Tinsley Pavilion is also a facility on the grounds that is used often for event purposes. Next slide, please. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Assistant County Manager Mark Mora, who's going to take you through some of the actions that have already been taken and some of the actions that are up for discussion moving forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you can see from those pictures, there's definitely some work that needs to be done throughout that facility. To better understand the issues, the county did engage with a professional engineering firm to conduct an analysis. I would like to let you know that Wade Brown from Weston and Sampson is here. He's sitting next to EHAB there. He was one of the engineers that performed this analysis for us. And what they did in their analysis is characterize the repairs in 3 different categories: priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. Priority 1 is basically those life safety issues that need to be addressed immediately. So in this particular presentation, we're focusing on Tinsley Pavilion and Davidson House, understanding that a majority of the events scheduled for the Civic Center are taking place in those pavilions or buildings, as well as the 4-H program uses those. So in those particular facilities, there are some priority 1 fixes that include life safety items such as exit signs, evacuation lights, trip hazards, fire system protection, suppression, and some code compliance issues, electrical code compliance issues. So the recommendation is to look at those issues first, and we have staff performing those repairs internally, and we are scheduled to complete those by April 14th. And at that time, any scheduled event for those 2 pavilions will be able to continue. If we can go back that same slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Civic Center itself. The estimated priority 1 repairs for that building is $375,000. And again, those are life safety items such as exit signs, evacuation lights, trip hazards, and the fire suppression and suppression systems and protection systems. Once approved, we'll have to get board approval for those repairs, obviously. Once approved, it'll take 6 to 8 months to complete the construction project. After that point, the building will be safe to be used, but longer-term fixes are still needed. Again, going back to there was 3 categories of fixes, priority 1, 2, and 3. We are only recommending priority 1 fixes, life safety, to make that building safe, not for continuous use into the future.
Next slide, please. So I'd like to also take another moment just once again to talk about the 4-H youth programs here, and that to let you know that staff has heard you loud and clear as to what the priorities are as far as 4-H youth programs, as well as the continuing of the annual Southwest Florida Fair. So as I noted earlier, Commissioner Greenwell and staff have had various meetings with our 4-H youth partners. As Mr. Mora just pointed out, we will have Tinsley Pavilion and Davidson House open and available for use for our 4-H youth before fully completed on April 14th. In our conversations with them, they've also noted that the barns, there's 3 barns out there, the horse barn, the swine barn, and the beef barn, as well as the Grand Pavilion, are also facilities that the 4-H youth program use. We do have a little bit more time in our conversations with them and when we can get those repairs completed. So we prioritize Tinsley Pavilion and Davidson House, not just for the 4-H youth programs, but to allow other events to continue to be used there. And we will then focus on the barns and the Grand Pavilion to make those immediate priority 1 fixes. We will use staff in-house in order to make those corrections, and those funds that are needed to make those repairs we have been able to identify within our existing budget. 4-H has sent out 2 letters and an email to the 4-H families reconfirming and notifying those families of our ongoing commitment to the 4-H program, and encouraged families to go to our website in order to be able to either fill out the survey and provide comment on what the future of the Civic Center can look like as we continue to move through this process. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Mora to talk a little bit about what's the spreadsheet on the right-hand side, most notably that $1.7 million, and those are financial commitments that the board has already made that far exceed what our contractual obligation have been met over the years. Mr. Mora.
Thank you, Christine. That table on the right-hand side that she referred to is an example of the investments the county commissioners have put into the facility since 2004, 2005. A majority of those expenses came at roof repairs and chiller unit replacement at the Civic Center. So close to, well over $1.7 million has been invested in repair work in those facilities.
I wanted to make sure that we point out the financial commitment that this board has made into the Civic Center, because there has been a lot of misperceptions about the investments made by the board over the years. So we appreciate having that opportunity to point that out for the citizens as well as the board. On the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see what some of the highlights of what the current Fair Board agreement includes, which is for the Fair Board to maintain the complex in good condition, for the Fair Board Association to make improvements and repairs. Any permanent alterations must have prior approval of county. And there is a section within the current agreement that states that the Fair Board shall have the right to continue use of the complex for the Southwest Florida Fair for the purposes of staging the Southwest Florida Fair on an annual basis upon mutually determined terms and conditions between both parties. I also wanted to note that in 2007, there was an added requirement for the Fair Association to deposit 1/3 of the parking proceeds into an interest-bearing account for future major improvement projects at the Civic Center building and grounds. Next slide, please. The board also gave us direction as far as starting community engagement. As I mentioned earlier, we have set up a landing page on our website. You can access our landing page from our home page, but it is also available at legov.com/civic center. On there, you will find the executive summary of the study, a brief introduction. We have an interactive map that shows all of the different facilities and pictures that are associated with that. We've attached drone footage to that website, as well as board actions, as well as a community engagement survey. As of yesterday, we had over 1,700 submissions. We will continue to keep that survey open. There is a comment box at the bottom of that survey that people can go ahead and put whatever comments or additional information in, and as it stands right now, I don't have the exact number, I can get that to you, but I've got about 15 pages of comments that we have received, and so we'll prepare all of that and present them back to you as the board to give you a consensus of what those comments have been. And that staff will continue to do outreach with our stakeholders and also looking to create an opportunity for a town hall meeting. Staff is working to identify a location and a date and time that would make sense. Next slide, please. So where we are right now with next steps, as we've just discussed, there's some decision points as it relates to the Civic Center, as well as the current agreement that we have in place. The board already has approved when they approved the Fifth Amendment to the agreement last year, that this agreement is due to sunset at the end of September. We could then begin negotiations with the Fair Board for the annual fair, and the county could assume the day-to-day operations and events scheduled on or after October 1st, 2023, and then the Civic Center fixes. And if I could, I would like to take an opportunity to just frame what a motion might look like for your consideration. And so what that would be was authorize staff to initiate the process to make the life and safety repairs to the Civic Center building, as well as confirm county administration's authorization to the repairs for Tinsley Pavilion, Davidson House, the 3 barns, the Grand Pavilion, to maintain the ongoing 4-H youth programs for the students here at Lee County, and then to authorize staff to begin negotiations with the Fair Board for the staging of the Southwest Florida Fair. Staff will continue to brief the board on this project, and this will allow continuing use of this building while the board and staff work with our community on a brighter future for this amazing property. Thank you. Staff's available for questions.
Chairman, if I may. I'll make a motion to approve that language.
Okay, very good. Motion from Commissioner Greenwell. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Sandelli. Very good. Any further questions on that right now?
I do, because
Commissioner
I heard what
Pendergrass.
Christine said on verification on the, you said a lot there. Thanks for your presentation, thanks for your work. So you're saying the agreement would be in with the Fair Board, but we would still be negotiating for the next fair, the 100th fair for next year?
The agreement would sunset, as it has already been approved to sunset, and that according to the current agreement that is in place, there is, within the term of agreement, the language that I mentioned before, which the Fair Association shall have the right to continue the use of the complex for purposes of staging the Southwest Florida Fair on an annual basis upon mutually determined terms and conditions between the parties.
So I got this morning, the presentation we got to, it was sent to us yesterday at 4:30. So is that motion that was scripted, is it in here anywhere, or is anything else been provided to it? This what you just said, just then? I'm sorry?
It's in the contract.
It's in the contract. Okay, well, I haven't seen that information, so obviously Commissioner Greenwell has. So do we have that here? We could actually see it before we vote on this?
We have an agreement.
Is there a way that you could put the motion up on that projector right there so that we could look at it and read it as we're considering it? I don't know if you have that motion printed out.
I do not have that motion printed out.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to follow administrative code. I can't ask my colleagues questions, but does any of my other colleagues have had a copy of this so we could see that's been presented already this morning?
I'm sorry.
Do we have I can't ask my colleagues on administrative code questions, but I can ask you, has my colleagues seen this motion that you just read?
No, I just read it as an opportunity to frame.
So it's part of the contract, though? Okay. Do you have a copy of the contract, though?
I do have a copy.
Okay, I just want to make sure, the dates. I just want to make sure our community doesn't lose out on any events that's upcoming. We have a lot of events coming up, and I was just out there Saturday. They had the gun show that comes up every 2 months, and obviously it needs to be repairs and some updates, but I'm not sure. I just make sure we don't lose use of the facilities. That's why I was trying to clarify. Are we shutting everything down, or people still be able to use it for the scheduled events?
The events that are scheduled at Tinsley Pavilion and Davidson House can continue to be there once the repairs are completed on April 14th.
Yeah, it's like I said, obviously, and I just want for clarification. I know you said the board's been committed to repairs, and yes, I've seen the repairs we've made since 2007, but overall, I think we all admit that over the last 40 years, there's been no remodeling of the facility. And anybody here that uses the facility has gone there for graduations in the past, car shows, RV shows, gun shows, whatever it may be, concerts. The county has never been actually, if you want to be totally transparent, never as aggressive as repairing and remodeling. It was doing those 40 years, and when it comes to baseball, no offense to baseball, I love baseball, but this county over the last 40 years have moved 2 stadiums, and built 2 stadiums. We remember ran that in 2012 and 13. Please, no comments, please. We remember back in 12 and 13, it was a different discussion 10 years ago here. The county, we just acquired a $55 million debt because of the Twins remodeling of the Twin Stadium. Then the county before that, 4 years, spent $88 million to relocate the Twins from City of Palms or the Red Sox to the Daniels corridor, which is a great project. I totally support the project, but it's 3 weeks of practice. And meanwhile, over the last 40 years, the county has never spent any money to remodel this facility. And this is an asset to the county. I love to see this expand in the future. I've been talking to staff, why don't we use TDC funds? Because those stadiums were built under TDC funds for tourist tax, but why don't we use those funds to rebuild this facility and have multi-use fields, multi-use access for equestrian 4-H clubs, and not just the fair, but throughout the year, part of the community. I'd like to see that in the future, and hopefully we can talk with staff about that in the future, though. Because we really want to be transparent about what the total commitment, not, say anything from the past, but the last 40 years, what has the county done to remodel the facilities, to keep it updated? It's never been updated since it's been built. And that's what's happened through the years. Anybody knows if you have a home or business, you have to update it, you have to maintain it. And I think what's happened is, the same reason is we had to move baseball fields is because things get older and outdated, and we have to re-update it. So.
Thanks, Commissioner Pendergrass.
Chairman, if I may.
Commissioner Greenbaum.
First, I'd like to thank staff for getting out there right away and fixing the life issues that we have and safety issues that we have at the barns in those two buildings, and getting that done in a timely fashion. So I'm going to thank you all for that. I also have to point out that it says right in the contract that they are to maintain the facility in good condition. It really wasn't the county's obligation to do that. That was a contract that they entered in 20-something years ago. So it also says in that contract that they are to return the facility back to the county in the condition they received it in. Obviously, that's not going to be able to happen. So if we're going to be transparent, then let's be transparent and say that we have a situation out there now where it takes leadership to step up and say, we can no longer allow our facility, one of the county facilities, to be in the condition it's in that is unsafe to the community. And that's why we were advised, not by a commissioner, but by engineers, that we needed to close it down temporarily to get it back in condition that it's safe to the public. And that's what we did last meeting. So getting these repairs done will give us an opportunity to continue to do those events, but let's make sure we understand that it's 6 to 8 months before we can get the Civic Center repairs done, if we approve this motion, to open that back up. So there's some real issues out there that have to be addressed. And addressing the issues of a building that is 44 to 45 years old, there's obviously deterioration that goes on, but there's also maintenance that must continue. And you can see the county effort was to help do that. But I'm just going to be very frank. That doesn't live up to the standards of a Lee County facility. We went out last week, Monday, and toured that with senior staff. I did, and honestly, it's in very, very poor condition. So we have some decisions to make to temporarily keep it going, but look at what the engineers are telling us. They're telling us $22 million plus to get that back in condition to be a facility that the county can be proud of again, but we're still going to have a 45-year-old building. So we must understand that. So we're going to have decisions to make in the future whether we're going to spend that money to put it in that conditions, because we have other issues besides life-saving issues or life issues out there, danger issues, that need to be addressed and need to be addressed soon. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that it's not in condition that we can just turn the other cheek. And I'd also like to talk about the 4-H program. I pointed out to staff that I've been out there buying the animals and supporting our community. I've done it many, many times. Even though my children did not participate, I wanted to support the area and the community, so I did it. There's not enough seating out there for the buyers to even have a seat. It's so you're right, we do a lot for the ball fields. I want to disagree with that. We do a lot for our youth in this county, but we have not done a lot for our 4-H program. We have not. And that needs to change. It's an embarrassment to me for the county to see that facility in the condition it's in, and also they deserve better than that. These 4-H kids that put that effort in all year with these animals deserve better than that, and our community deserves better than that, and we're going to make sure they have better than that. They deserve a state-of-the-art facility, just like our Little League teams, our football teams, our soccer teams, our high schools, our schools. They deserve better, and it's time we stand up and do something better. That's what I have to say.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. DeJarlais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Pendergrass, your comments are well taken. Lee County has not invested in that property over time, and in retrospect, should have. I think and this is not a criticism of the Fair Association. It is simply that if you go back in time and look at the original contracts and the 5 amendments since then, no one really contemplated that the Fair Association and that business model would be unable to afford the kinds of repairs and upgrades that are necessary for that property. It really does need to be in the hands of local government with some way to manage it that gets us to redevelopment of the property. It is so outdated, and to replace those buildings or to fix them to current standards is millions and millions of dollars. That property can be used for a lot of the traditional uses, which have to do with the 4-H, the fair, and the shows that and exhibitions that take place in the main building, in the Civic Center itself. But redevelopment, is something that we have to face sooner or later, and sooner seems to be better than later. There's very likely, through a competitive process, if we do the scope correctly, there are public-private partnerships to be had, which are very common for these kinds of venues. And so, we, to the point that Ms. Brady made, if you'll give us permission to do the life safety repairs, we can continue the operation and accommodate all of those events that are currently planned, I think with very little exception. And then while we're doing that, we can talk with you about all the survey that's taken place, what we've gotten from the community in the way of what the community would like to see out there, and then we'll be working on the process for future use. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. County Manager. Real quickly, just to help guide the conversation again, can we talk about the motion again? Could you just reread that to us so that we can talk about practically what that motion accomplishes, what the consequences are of if we don't pass that motion, and just then we can have a better discussion. So what is the motion again?
Authorize staff to initiate the process to make the life safety repairs to the Civic Center building, as well as confirm county administration's authorization for the repairs for the Tinsley Pavilion, Davidson House, the 3 barns, which include the beef barn, the swine barn, and the horse barn, as well as the Grand Pavilion, to maintain ongoing 4-H youth programs. And then the second part of that is to authorize staff to begin negotiations with the Fair Board for the staging of the Southwest Florida Fair.
Okay, so let me ask some questions real quick. So part 1 of the motion basically says, we're going to give you the authorization to start working on we've had an engineer who told us these life safety repairs need to be made. They've been identified now. So there's evidence that there is life safety repairs that need to be made by an engineer. And so step 1 says we're authorizing you to spend the money and undertake the process of making the repairs to the Civic Center, the Tinsley, the Davidson, and all the other barns and pavilions that you outlined in the motion. What would be the consequences of not making those repairs?
The repairs that are done under the county administration piece, which is the Davidson House and Tinsley Pavilion, it's just a confirmation of what's already occurred. Okay. Those fixes are going to be done on April 14th.
Okay.
That falls within the county administration's authority and within our existing budget to do so. So it's just a reconfirmation of that. The 3 barns and the Grand Pavilion will also fall within the county administration's authority, and we will use existing budget to go ahead and make those fixes. So all of those facilities will be fixed and available for use. The Civic Center, which is the $375,000, does not fall within our authority to be able to make that type of life safety fixes. So we need your authorization to move forward with that process of fixing the Civic Center building. And by fixing that, that will make it open and available for use. They're not long-term fixes, they're immediate fixes.
But in your opinion, that's basically the quickest way we can get it back open for public use?
Yes, sir.
By making those fixes, okay. And so then part two of the motion, I know we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of the fair, and the last thing I would want to do is not allow that to happen. So giving you the authorization to negotiate with the fair board, even if the management agreement expires, you could still negotiate with the fair board to hold that 100th fair out there at the Civic Center property. And by then, it sounds like we'll have these repairs, these life safety repairs made as well. So that could be part of the negotiation and talk, right? I mean, that's what you're asking us in part two, is just let's negotiate, let's talk about how to have the 100th fair.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so I think that's what the motion does. Commissioner Ruane, you're
Question.
recognized.
Can you go back to the $1.7 million chart that you have, if you will? Okay. My 2 cents, I hear everything that we're saying. The $375,000, what exactly was the bulk of that going towards?
Good question, Commissioner. Those are basically life safety issues that we have to address. A lot of it's in regards to fire suppression, fire protection, exit signs, so those types of issues that we have to resolve.
Okay, great. I've been in the private sector a long time. I'm a leaseholder of 39 properties. I could tell you my landlords pay for roofs. My landlords pay for air conditioners. My landlords pay for chillers. A lot of the things that we've invested in, I recognize they're big capital improvement items. We have to maintain the interior of spaces, but when it comes to capital improvement in the private sector, my landlord steps up and do it, and that's consistent throughout. So I recognize what we put into the facility, but that's just consistent with being the owner of the property. That's basically what happens in the real world. I agree with, we need to move forward. I want to see this fair take place. I want to see us do the necessary things. The remodel is a whole different conversation, and I think, we certainly owe a broad-based conversation. I don't know where this falls in attractions and TDC funds, but I certainly wouldn't mind knowing the answer to that later on, not today. But I am certainly in favor of moving forward with this to allow staff not only to do the things they seem to have in line, but the $375,000 of improvements, and continue to make sure we don't miss any of the events that we have scheduled for that facility, or really try as a goal to make sure we achieve every event that's planned for that facility, including the 100-year event. I think that would be catastrophic if we didn't make that.
Good deal. All right, very good.
I have a question.
Yeah, okay, Commissioner Pendergrass.
Christine, on the motion, I was trying to get clarification. So the original information officers received is 4 to 6 weeks. It would be closed down. Then we updated the newest one. I think it was 6 to 8 months. The Civic Center would be closed for, which would bring us beyond the September date for the Fair Board, correct?
Yeah, it would take about 6 to 8 months after we get board approval in order to go through the procurement process and line up contractors to do this work. And subject to the availability of materials to make those repairs, we believe it's between 6 to 8 months.
So that's for the repairs as part of this motion, though, right? If this was approved today under the current motion?
Correct.
So it'd be closed for 6 to 8 months?
Potentially, yeah.
So anything scheduled for the next 8 months would have to be canceled within the Civic Center, correct?
In the Civic Center, yes.
Why did the timeline change 4 to 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months? Is it based on timing?
I'm not quite sure where you're referencing 4 to 6 weeks. I'm unfamiliar.
It was a
Sir,
correction of the timeline?
it was a correction on the timeline.
Okay, I was just wondering how we could procure that and do it. That's why I was thinking that was too short to do it that quick, and then I was just trying to figure out how that happened. And so what happens to the tenants that would have been using that, for example, gun shows, and say, I think the next one's in May probably, or May or June, what would happen? They have to cancel that because of the closure, right?
Potentially, if we're concerned with the safety of the occupants of that building, would be the right decision. These repairs need to be made immediately. We do have an engineering report that recommends that. So it's probably good practice to follow what the engineer found in his analysis and do the repairs immediately as fast as we can.
Great, thank you. And I just want to say, I'm glad to see my colleagues are, they've seen the conditions. I think we all have been out there before seeing it. And Commissioner Greenwell, you had the experience of being at the 4-H. I never done that process, but to hear that the seating is not enough seating right there shows when we're talking about maybe rebuilding and remodeling the facility in the future, we have to increase the seating, you have to increase capacity, more opportunities for multi-use sports and throughout the project. And you see enhancements so families could use this facility year-round. So that's why I like to see, and Commissioner Graham, I'm glad to hear him say that, yes, this should be kept up to Lee County standards. We know what Lee County is. We should be, and we shouldn't be an embarrassment. We shouldn't have to go to Charlotte County to go to counties half our size of population to go to the Civic Center when they have an open Civic Center that can use and be held. We hold MPO meetings there sometimes, and it's unfortunate we don't have that in our county right now. So thank you for your staff and all your work on this.
Thank you. I had one further question, just because I don't know and I'd love to ask. So we do pass from time to time items on our agenda where we hire a certain amount of people to be on-call contractors to do work for us when projects are above a certain dollar amount or below a certain dollar amount. Do we have any of those contracts that we could use in order to maybe skip the procurement step and get to work quicker to make these life safety repairs that are outlined by an engineer?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Mary Tucker's going to come up.
Mary Tucker from procurement's going to come and address that? Okay. Good morning.
Good morning, Mary Tucker, the Procurement Management Director. We are currently planning on using a construction manager at risk from a pool of 14 that we currently have under contract, but they are still required to do some bidding of each of the disciplines. So it will be quicker by using that, but there still is some bidding that is required.
Okay, if I'm listening to what you're saying correctly, then when we use a construction manager at risk, their job is to hire all the subs, and for them to bid out and hire all those subs does take a certain period of time then?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ms. Tucker, for clarifying that. All right, at this time, Commissioner Ruane? Yeah.
Do you have an estimate on what time frame that would take?
It will probably take them 4 to 6 weeks to get it done.
4 to
Give
6.
us a GMP.
4 to 6 weeks, okay.
Chairman, if I may also.
Yeah, Commissioner Greenwell?
Also, I just want to clarify that, so to the public, basically, so everyone understands, we're not closing or stopping 4-H. We're trying to make sure that it's safe, and we're going to make it, hopefully in the future, bigger and better. Not hopefully, I believe we will. Also, we are going to have a fair. That's going to be negotiated. We are going to have a fair. We're not shutting down those kind of things. We just need to fix the facility to the point where we can have those things. And that's just where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, we do need to take public comment. We have a considerable amount of cards at this time. If there's no further questions or comments, let's go ahead and take public comment on the motion that's on the floor. So real quick, before we get into public comment, I know this is an emotional issue. I've been serving you all for almost 10 years now, along with many of these other gentlemen here too. And I think you've seen that we all care very much about this and want to do what's right by the community. So can I just, a word about decorum today. So please, as people talk, just put yourself in their shoes. Please don't boo or hiss anybody who says something that you don't like. And also on the other side, please don't clap or applaud. It's a lot easier and a lot more keeps in kind with the decorum of the proceedings that we have if we can just give everybody their opportunity to say their piece for the 3 minutes that they're allowed to. When you come up to the podium, you're going to see right at the top corner there's something that looks like a stoplight. It's got a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. Green means go. Yellow is probably going to come on when you have about a minute left, so you might want to start thinking about how to wrap up your comments. Because we have so many speakers today, I am going to go ahead and call the next speaker when the red light comes on, because I want to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance to talk today. So if we can just, try and again, just treat each other like neighbors, like we'd want to be treated, I think this is going to be great today. So our first speaker is actually our tax collector, Noel Branning, followed by Marty Burnett. So Marty, if you can start to get ready, you'll be after Noel.
Good morning, Commissioners. Actually, after hearing today's enlightening presentation, I waive my time.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Marty Burnett, followed by Tim Knafel. Marty, are you here? Marty may have had to leave. Tim, if you're available, or Tom, I apologize. Man, I messed your name up last time too. After Tom will be Keith Dean.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I want to change what I was going to originally say, and I'd like to address two things that you can call them a misconception, you can call them false narrative, you can call them whatever you wish, but nonetheless, I think it's information that's important that the public has. I'm glad you left that chart up there, because what you could have put is a chart on the other side with, okay, so 27 years ago, from my understanding, I didn't live here, but I'm a history major, so I like to look into things. The county turned over the property to the Lee County Fair Board. It seems to me at the time that everybody who tried to run that property lost money, and that the county couldn't wait to give it to somebody else and make it their problem. So what have we done in the last 27 years with that particular property? Well, if you put a chart up there and said what's been invested by the Fair Board, you'd find out that it costs us about $50,000 a month to maintain that property. In utilities, maintenance, et cetera. You see maintenance staff sitting behind me. We have to employ folks to do that. In that period of time, that's cost us about $16.2 million compared to 1.7. As you might imagine, and yes, we all agree that the property could use updating, particularly the Civic Center. But imagine you've got a 45-year-old building made of metal that sits in the South Florida sun all the time. I learned real quick with my car that that's not necessarily a good thing. So it costs us a lot of money to keep that building running. We've put an additional $4 million into various repairs and improvements out there, all on county land. And the nice thing is you don't have to take my word for it, because you've done a number of audits of the Fair Board recently, and the audits all bear this out. In fact, one of them pointed out, as was mentioned earlier, that we have done more, in fact, considerably more than we're required to do by our contract. You mentioned some of the buildings earlier, Tinsley. The Fair Board actually built Tinsley Pavilion at a cost of $200,000. We put in a new horse arena recently at a cost of $150,000. For 4-H, we wanted to put up another structure for small animals recently, but we weren't able to do that. In that time, the county's done $1.7 million. So all we're really asking is, we've tried to be good stewards of this property for a very long time when nobody else really wanted anything to do with it. As you have these discussions, please include us. I've been involved in a lot of partnership agreements in my life, and I've learned a good partner doesn't do what's in the agreement. That just stops them from being in breach. A good partner does things that aren't written in the agreement because they're the right thing to do, and that's what the Fair Board's done for 27 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Keith Dean, followed by Henry Fichter.
Good morning, Keith Dean for the record. Starting on a small scale, working with Frank Mann a long time ago, over 20 years ago, we built the Alva Community Center. And back 20 years ago, it was a state-of-the-art facility. We were so happy to have that little building. And then later on, he worked with us in Park and Rec, and we built the concession building and the bathrooms. It was so nice to have bathrooms that our kids could use that was better than an outhouse. And then, of course, when I was on the Park and Rec board, we built the Stereo Community Center, state-of-the-art facility. Then Norfolk Myers Community Center, state-of-the-art facility. And then we have 2 ballparks, Major League ballparks, state-of-the-art facility for you and I and all the community to use. And then our Park and Rec go through a accreditation program where people from all over the country come in and they go to our parks and they look at our programs, they look at our staff, and we get the highest award in the Park and Rec because of our facilities, because of how they're run, how they're maintained. Imagine if the Civic Center was in that accreditation program. Imagine if those people that came from all over the country walked through those buildings and said, wow, this is Lee County? Is this the same Lee County that I walked through the Stereo Community Center? Do the people in East Fort Myers, Alva, do we not deserve the same facilities that they deserve? Why aren't we getting that maintenance? What program is not working? What program is not working that is giving us that program? I'm a 4-H, a lot of my 4-H friends are here. Our kids deserve a 4-H program because it not only teaches them about agriculture and growing animals, it teaches them economics and selling their animals, how much it costs them to grow that animal. I sit out in the sun and bought animals, or I stood in the rain and watched my kids show their hogs. It's not adequate. Those facilities are not adequate, but that location is adequate. We need to do better. It needs to be a change made by Lee County on how we run that fair and that 4-H program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Henry Fichter, followed by Todd Reed. Morning.
Good morning, County Commissioners, County staff, County Manager, Assistant County Manager. My name is Henry Fichter. I'm a lifelong resident of Lee County. I wanted to speak today about the Civic Center and share some concerns many of us in the community have. I have shared some thoughts on your online survey and chose livestock events, equestrian events, 4-H, FFA, fair, music venues as my selections, which is essentially in line with the historic use of this property since it was built. I appreciate what the county staff has done as it relates to the survey and gaining public input. This is a huge issue, and it will no doubt be an issue on Election Day. It appears that everyone on the board and the county manager all have the same goal in mind: fix it up, repair, replace it, continue with the tradition that have brought this community together for years. If you continue with that in mind, you will have no doubt overwhelming support from the community. I hear some comments said about the 100th fair. I'm interested in the 101st fair, the 102nd fair, and the next 100 years of the fair. What does that look like? The number of people who have participated in the livestock program over the years, their kids, grandkids, families, all have a special place in their heart for this property. It is the single-handedly most motivating topic in our community. Tens of thousands of people attending year after year, and thousands of children who are now voting adults have shown animals there and just spent time on the Midway. It's easy to do the right thing on this decision. The answer is simple: invest our tax dollars to get the place back in working order. Phase your work so that you can still maintain the events that people want to see there. And most importantly, create a public workshop and invite members of the public to participate in the direction and the decisions that will be made for this property. We don't want to be kept in the dark. You know, we really don't like it when this comes up off the agenda, that the Civic Center comes up, because we know it's a high-profile issue. We are very much opposed to a private developer taking over this property. We don't need to give another 100 acres to a private developer for profiteering. That's not what this property is about. I think although they have good intentions, it's all about their bottom line. You have a very capable facilities management and Parks and Rec staff who could take this property and manage it and keep all the events that you all would like to keep going and do a great job at it. There are also a lot of volunteers in the community, as you know, involved with the livestock that would like to be a part of that as well. I'd like to wrap up my comments by just asking you to make a motion to open a workshop for public participation, and I would like to be a volunteer of that community workshop that can help the county make the decisions the constituents want and provide feedback on decisions that should really involve anyone who wants to be a part of this process. We also currently have, as you know, competing livestock committees involved in this right now. That would also be another reason to have a public workshop that you could invite the public to be involved in. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Do the right thing and make us proud.
All right, at this time I'll call Todd Reed, followed by Donnie Fuel.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Todd Reed, and I'm a small business owner here. I believe that the Lee Civic Center should be repaired properly, one building at a time, so that it can be utilized for the same or similar purposes that it was purchased for and given over to the Lee County Fair Board for. One of the most important purposes, not to mention the largest that's held there, is the Southwest Florida and Lee County Fair. It would be it's kind of an accommodation for a reunion of sorts for the community, a safe and fun place to gather together and enjoy the festivities of what a fair has to offer, along with our 4-H and FFA programs. While there's others who want to try to emulate what we do there, our 4-H and FFA program have the opportunity to not only show their animals and sell them at the market sale, but also to teach others the importance of where our food comes from, because it's very vital that our youth know that food does not just come off the public shelf. The fair is a lighthouse to a dark world that needs a safe place to enjoy a fun and entertaining atmosphere that cannot be compared with anything else that this community has to offer. It is a place where we get to celebrate our community, our agriculture, and our youth of today, and look forward to our youth of tomorrow. Additionally, there are a lot of small business owners like myself who are vendors at many of the shows held at the grounds that need and rely upon this venue. It is the last affordable venue of its size in Lee County. Not to mention that there is no other event venue here that has the wide open space that they do, not only inside the Civic Center, but also on the 100 acres of its property to hold the diverse events. I would ask that the Board of County Commissioners not close the property to as a public event venue. Come to the property, come through the front gate, meet with our Fair Board members, see what positive things are happening at the Civic Center and what they're doing for our community. Talk to the community around the property and take their input into what happens with the property, heavier than those that never even cross the river to enter our side of Fort Myers. Make your repairs one building at a time, but please do not close the property while we're all trying to reimagine it. Has there been a plan put into place before now that if the Fair Board was not meeting the expectations held by the Lee County, that they need to improve the venue or else their contract would not be renewed? I know that I have seen a plan from 2015 where the county put forth several capital campaigns that were never completed or even started. I also took note that the fair was not even an option on the survey that you sent out, so it seems that the decision has already been made. So I ask you, instead of trying to rush this decision for whatever reason is behind it, please allow the Fair Board to continue to maintain our taxpayer property in a maintained state. And yes, as we reimagine the future, let's not forget what our past is. Let's not forget what Lee County represents. While the leaders just see dollar signs, the community sees friends, family, and loved ones. Please don't take away our spaces for the sake of tourist dollars. Let's work together and fix and expand an already wonderful thing that North Fort Myers has to offer. I know the Fair Board is ready and willing to work with you. Will you be the leaders that this community needs and step up to the plate and be willing and able to work with them? Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. All right, Donnie Fuel, followed by Denise Eberly. Morning, Donnie. Good to see you again.
Good morning. I'm Donnie Fuel, with the Fair Board. I've spent 32 years at the Sheriff's Office. 30 of the years I worked at the fair. Since 1993, I've worked every day at the fair for the last 30 years. And when I retired last year, I became a Fair Board member this year. I hope everybody has received a list from the Civic Center and Fairground events that was requested by Mr. Dujarle. Mr. Dujarle stated this information is vital to the Commission when making decisions about management agreement. As you can imagine, planning and running an event like an 11-day fair takes a year at least in planning, and then before you know it, it's over. And you start planning for the next event, next year. It takes a lot of work. In the months after the fair, we're working on issuing checks to our exhibitors, our winning clubs, our charity organizations, paying invoices, cleaning the property, and so much more. During the summer months, not only are the other shows taking place, but we are also working on the electronic side of registration and preparing for the next year's book for the fair. There are matters of clinics, prospect shows, check-ins, weigh-ins, tagging, ribbons, trophies, buckles, fans, barricades, and of course the portalettes. All this needs to be taken into account and prepared for. We have exhibitors calling us now wanting to know if they need to buy an animal for the fair. The answer, of course, is yes. But the domino effect is far-reaching. All of this being said, during the late summer and fall months, we have animal clinics, check-ins, tagging, and other prospect shows. We need commitment that the grounds will be available for these exhibitors as they prepare for their future projects. Many exhibitors are now in the process of purchasing this deer for 2024 fair. They're calling and asking what to do. We have to know how to plan. The fair is not just an 11-day event, and we urge the county to please slow down and make decisions about the Civic Center venue based on facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuel. Thanks for your service as well. Denise Eberly, followed by Mike Peak.
Hello. This is going to be short but sweet because pretty much everybody said what I think on this. So I'm Denise Eberly. I'm with Alva Inc., Director and Chairman of the Oversight Committee. So yeah, what was previously said to me, I agree with 100%. I understand it needs to be renovated, needs to be repaired, needs to maintain its agricultural venue as it is. It's historical there, and we want to remain that way. Right now, our rural community and our country life is being threatened extensively by all this development. And I would see if this was taken over by a private industry or area, it would just be for the developer's benefit, not for the community's benefit. It would basically be, so otherwise, other than that, the suggestions that they had in the thing that they sent out to us all was RC planes and drones, golf, a gymnasium, RV camping, athletic fields. We have all that stuff. We don't need it. You don't need RC drones and planes and a golf course and all that. That's more for amenities for the developments around us that are occurring. That's not for our local, rural, country, venue, agricultural lifestyle. So we just prefer that it stay like it is. It does not need to be reimagined. It just needs to be renovated, repaired, taken care of, and maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Peak, followed by Rick Reithofer.
Mike Peak for the record. Good morning, commissioners, county management, and staff. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. Going through what we just heard from the presentation from the assistant county manager, I say personally, I would ask you to vote yes on that motion. Let's get funds there to approve to do those repairs, get that facility back open, let the community have it for use until you do make a decision on what the reimagination of it is. Absolutely understood. We absolutely want to sit down with county management and staff about negotiating for the fair. Folks, next year, 100 years. We're not going to stop at 100 years. We're going well beyond. So we want to get that going right away. Our commitment out there is to the point the board of directors of the Southwest Florida and Lee County Fair Association, we're committing $200,000 toward those repairs. So that being said, we want to get that moving as quick as possible because we have contracts for businesses and a nonprofit. Next month on May 12th, the Shrine Circus was scheduled to be there. Big fundraiser for one of the greatest philanthropies in the world. So we need to get that resolved too with the meeting, see if we can get that done. We just had a gun show there this past weekend. We had a gun show this past weekend. We can have a fair, a circus on May 12th. Commissioners, I just want to remind you, or if you didn't know, 3 years ago, 2019, or almost 4 years now, the Board of Commissioners at the time required the Fair Association to go through an audit done by the Inspector General's Office of the Lee County Clerk of Courts. It is available, of course, it's public record. We passed this audit with flying color, folks, and I'm here to tell you today, we still do those fiduciary responsibilities. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rick Reithofer, followed by Fran Crone.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Richard Reithofer, the President and CEO and the owner of Reithofer Shows, the traveling carnival that has played the Southwest Florida and Lee County Fair for the last 23 years. We are the oldest traveling carnival in the United States, still owned and operated by the same family. I would like to speak about my relationship with the Lee County Fair Board. Every year, the fairgrounds has improved with a main focus to make the facility a safe and modern fairgrounds. There has not been one year that the facility has not been improved. New pavement, wire trenches installed so baby carriages wheelchairs and foot traffic can traverse the grounds without having tripping hazards. Electrical infrastructure has been modernized, improved, and brought up to current codes. One year, due to a tremendous amount of precipitation, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of loads of rock had to be brought into the facility. It had to be spread. It had to be rolled flat so that the fairgrounds was ready to be able to take all the equipment that we bring to it. Over the years, the fair has improved the livestock barns and this year built an equestrian center for the youth of Lee County. Many days I walk through the livestock and 4-H area watching farm families set up their livestock in the different stalls in the barns. These farm families are at the fair for the entire event, showing off what their kids have worked for the whole year in raising their animals in hopes of winning blue ribbons. Folks, this is true Americana at its best, teaching the youth of today true values and worth ethics that they will carry with them throughout their lifetimes. The Fair Board has poured thousands of dollars into this property that is not even owned by them. The Fair Board has always made sure that safety is of their utmost importance. I feel that the board to be a great group of honest and dedicated volunteers who have always tried to make the Southwest Florida and Lee County Fair the best in our state. Our fair contracts are reinstated over 5-year increments, and we will soon be negotiating future contracts. I'm hoping you will take this into consideration when voting on the requested extension for the management agreement for the Southwest and Florida and Lee County Fair and the Lee County property. Lee County has always had a strong commitment to 4-H programs and the livestock shows, and this is the true place to showcase their hard work. The fair provides the opportunity to make this happen.
Thank you, Mr. Reithofer. Fran Crone, followed by Randy Colmer.
Good morning, Fran Crone. A couple of issues at hand. One thing I'd like to go on record is that in 2015, the Fair Board was given the county CIP, where the county intended to put money in a 5-year plan to work on those structures. This was provided to us. I have the emails, I have all the records. The money was removed before it ever went to the commission. So therefore, when we followed up with staff to find out when repairs were going to be made, we were told that the money had been removed. So the county was aware at that time, even then, that they needed to help with the structures. The report I'd like to point out on the Weston Sampson report, of the whole report, only 2% are life safety issues, only 2%. Of that 2%, the Fair Board office, the life safety cost is $240, not millions, not thousands, $240. We're going to close the building for $240. The Davidson House and the Tinsley, $600 each. The 2 restrooms need work. So the Civic Center, what they talk about in their own report, the life safety ones are the Civic Center arena locked doors and the unguarded access to the AV handlers. That comes off of your own report of the life safety issues. The next thing that I would like to bring up is that the management agreement, there is a clause in here, and it says it may be renewed for successive terms at the county's discretion. All right, so staff is saying that it is due to sunset. The Fair Board has made a request of the county commission to extend that agreement. It's been 27 years that this agreement has been in effect. By closing the buildings and the grounds, we are circumventing the vote of the commission on this management agreement. I would beg you to pause for that. because the Fair Board are not bad partners. If you again go back and look at that audit, look at our records, at the money that the Fair Board has poured into property they don't own to make your property better. Yeah, there's no way to maintain a 40-year-old metal structure, I'm sorry. When we got the report about the maintenance building, we offered to fix it and the county told us no.
Thank you, Ms. Crone. Randy Coleman, followed by Gene Sims.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not a big public speaker, but before I have a prepared statement I want to read, but before I do, let me tell you a little about me. I've been here over 50 years, citizen of Lee County. I'm retired from the Sheriff's Office after 27 years. Part of my involvement in the fair started back when I was with the Sheriff's Office working the detail out there. I got involved in it at that point. Upon retirement, I, as Donnie Fuel told you, became a Fair Board member and am a volunteer out there. Okay, let me, just so you know, a commitment there for the citizens of Lee County. Okay, we've had 3 major hurricanes hit the Lee County area causing destruction. After each storm, the county took over the Civic Center property in order to house FEMA and other relief units. The Fair Board, knowing that the building is an emergency relief distribution location, and with open arms took this way, and not only to embrace the community in the time of need, but to continue to be great partners with the county leaders. All 3 hurricanes shut down many scheduled shows and income, and the property sustained significant damage to the grounds and a few of the buildings. During the housing of the relief agencies, we even supplied 24-hour security for your buildings and property, all at overtime rate, all paid for by the Fair Board. To this date, we have never received any compensation for damages or repairs or the excessive utility bills that have been incurred. The Fair Board has paid every dime of this. Some of the FEMA groups left damage that they were supposed to have cleaned up and repaired, which they did not. Additionally, from the last 2 hurricanes, we were contacted by Lee County officials requesting the utilization of the Fair Board property, which is just to the north side of the Fair Board, which joins to it. It's 11 acres. That 11 acres adjudicated was, to the fairgrounds, was used as a mulching site, as they had nowhere else in this area to mulch in for the hurricane debris. Without hesitation, we said yes, never expecting anything for the use of our property except for the Fair Board to be part of giving back to the community. Just want to say that we're there for you guys. We want to work with you guys. We've been there a long time, and we want to continue on. Please vote yes to fix the life safety issues and negotiate with us to continue the fair as we go on into many, many more years. Thank you.
Thank you. Gene Sims, followed by Don Wells.
Good morning, Commissioners and County staff. My name's Gene Sims. As a board member of the Southwest Florida Lee County Fair, I have a lot of love for the fair and the events that occur there. I, too, like Mr. Fuel and Mr. Colmer, I am a native of Lee County, born and raised here. I've been involved in the fair since elementary school when we were at Terry Park, displaying writing samples that we did in elementary school for our parents to look at. From there to the Lee County Civic Center, where I spent 35 years with the Sheriff's Department, providing safety and security at the fairgrounds, and now as a board member, volunteering time to see that tradition carry on. We've already spoken about the millions of dollars that the Fair Board has put into maintaining that facility out there over the last 27 years, building structures, 4-H programs, that type thing. But also, we've opened our doors to a lot of different events, RV shows, gun shows, quilt shows, quinceañeras, and the fair itself. We've had over 300,000 people come through the doors, not just to the fair, but to these other events that also bring in revenue and tourism and everything else towards our community. On top of that, we see about a little over 100,000 people each year come to the fair and support that choose to come to the fair because they can't afford to go to places like Disney World and Busch Gardens and places like that. So we would like very much to continue our partnership with the county and be able to work together to come up with a better plan for the Civic Center and our fairgrounds out there. I would strongly please encourage you to vote yes for the life safety motion that is on the floor and also to continue negotiations with the Fair Board for future fairs here in Lee County. Thank you, and I appreciate the time to speak.
Thank you. Don Wells, followed by Randy Crone.
Good morning. My name is Don Wells. I'm the recorder for Araba Shrine. For many, many years, we've had the circus at the Lee County Civic Center. And what we do is we send out an invitation to all the Lee County schools and charter schools that the first show is for the kids and it's free. We also have the second and third shows. Any child that's 12 and under, it's free. Hopefully you will allow us to have our May 12th circus. We've already committed about $20,000 for the circus, so appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Crone, followed by Amanda Cochran. Morning.
Randy Crone, Commissioners and County staff. As one of the longest board members of Southwest Florida and Lee County Fair Association, I want to speak to you about the fair so important to the citizens of Lee County. Again, like the rest of them has talked about, 34 years in law enforcement. I've lived here all my life for 62 years. Been part of this fair for many years at Terry Park and growing up here in Lee County. As you know, we just had the 99th annual fair, over 110,000 people that came to your fair. Some local, some non-local, which helps in, like again, we've talked about this tourism. Attendees of all ages. We did a touch poll survey on our exit gate, which showed that they gave us a 4.4 rating out of a 5, which we were very proud of here at our fair. That we are not only the largest fair in Southwest Florida, including 6 counties, we were among the oldest continued running fair in the state of Florida. Your county represents 6 surrounding counties, allowing many of these 6 counties of the show at our fair. The association gives over $26,000 in scholarships to our kids. Most importantly, the fair is a place for a child who has never seen a farm animal. In fact, has never touched a farm animal. Here they can learn from the exhibitors and watch firsthand of how they can grow the fair's food source. Every year, we are approached by families stating, "Thank you for having the Southwest Florida Fair. We can't afford to go to Disney World. We can't afford to go to Busch Gardens, Universal. At least we can bring our family here to have rides, excitement, and some fun and entertainment supplied." For this reason, I'm passionate about keeping the fair. It should be your fight also, to have the fair to years to come, to preserve the community celebration, to making sure that the community is taken care of at this time. I ask you to keep the county fair, that to commit to having the fair on the Civic Center property during your re-imaging of the property, and that you work with the Fair Association. If you don't want the fair at the current fairgrounds, which is purchased with federal grants to just with what it is, then location alternatives should be proposed for consideration. Maybe assist in purchasing land for another alternative. I hope it remains important to you because it absolutely is important to your community. Commissions, the fair has been 100 years, and I don't want to just have 100th year fair. You know, everybody's talked about, let's have one more fair for the 100th year. We need to have 100 more fairs. This is for the community. This is what you represent, and this is what the county and the community want. They enjoy it, they come there, and they have a great time. I'm so glad that we're going to get the Civic Center fixed. We need it fixed. I'm glad that we showed that we got $1.7 million that we've spent in the last 27 years that you have spent. Again, as Commissioner Pilnegrass said, it's not been enough, and we try to help as much as we can. You just give $1 million to Hertz Arena, and it don't even belong to you. I thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Crone. Amanda Cochran, followed by Connie Dennis.
As you just said, my name's Amanda Cochran. I'm not a public speaker either, but this is important to me as a community member. First of all, thank you for allowing the community the opportunity to speak. Thank you for creating the survey for public engagement. I want to thank specifically Commissioner Pendergrass and County Manager Desjardins for admitting that the county has neglected this property over the years. The current management agency was never intended to be responsible for the type of things that need to be done out there and have been neglected for years. Excuse me. The role and legacy of the agricultural sections of our community, such as where the Civic Center is located, is a vital part of Southwest Florida. The Civic Center was actually originally named the Lee County Agricultural and Recreational Center. Tell me another single-owned county-owned venue in Southwest Florida that brings over 100,000 people in a 10-day period and approximately 400,000 people annually. Tell me another county-owned venue that supports our agricultural community the way this property does. Tell me another single Lee County facility that brings in over $850,000 in donations in one afternoon in support of the agricultural education of the youth of our community. I would like to ask specifically if you intend on keeping the 4-H communities at the Lee County Civic Center. I know that you've stated, Commissioner Greenwell, that you're in full support of the 4-H activities for the kids. I want to know, do you intend on keeping them at the Lee County Civic Center? As a multi-generational member of this community, I go along with all of the folks that have already spoken that I think it's imperative that we keep this facility open. Given the information that was presented here today, I watched all the numbers, $375,000 for the Civic Center that has been grossly neglected is all that it takes to bring it up to functioning purpose. Does it really take 6 to 8 months to bring those $375,000 of alterations to fruition so that we can open back up? I'm not exactly sure why there was a vote to immediately close all of the facilities and cancel all the functions that were scheduled there and all the revenue that would be able to come in. They're canceled, so that conversation's over, I guess. In March, regarding the September sunset of the current management of the Civic Center property by the Lee County Fair Board, I think it was Commissioner Hammond who stated, it looks like we would like to see the end of the agreement sunset. My question is why? Why is the Fair Board's request for a 5-year extension not being considered and honored, given there is not one?
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it, and we definitely understand your message today.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Connie Dennis. She had to leave? Okay. All right, does anybody else wish to speak on this item who hasn't spoken yet? Danny, go ahead. And then if you could just stand by the door, I'll call you up right after him.
Yes, Commissioner Danny Ballard. I'm the ex-president of the North Fort Myers Civic, just a board member, but my phone rings all the time. I urge you to vote yes on the motion that Christine has made. And then going further, right now we're being reactive instead of being proactive. Maybe somebody from county staff and somebody from the Fair Board needs to meet monthly to discuss items that happen out there. And it's going to happen whether we have a hurricane or not. When you have as many people that go through there, vehicles that go through there, animals, there's going to be issues. So instead of having to be reactive, let's be proactive. Somebody from the Fair Board, somebody from Livestock, I don't care, but somebody from the county and somebody from the organizations that meet out there, they ought to meet on a monthly basis so we don't get back in this situation again. We can fix it now and not do nothing for 10 years. We'll be back here addressing it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ballard. All right, and please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Debbie Jacko. I'm the President of Concerned Citizens of Bayshore, and I represent them. This has been brought up, and it's very true that you keep your ballparks and your parks in wonderful condition, and I'm very appreciative of that because some of them are in Bayshore. But we also need to do the same thing with the Civic Center. As it was mentioned before, the fair was not an option on the survey that was online with all the different options that you could check. That survey was not one of them. In March, I went to the Lee Posse Arena. They had a horse, barrel racing and all kinds of things out there. That was so crowded that the parking lot that they had set aside overflowed and was going down both sides of Bayshore Road. There was probably twice as many people at the Posse Arena that they had sitting capacity for. So this is a very popular event out there. And I was amazed just trying to get out of there. It was like at least more, like 3/4 of a mile down Bayshore Road on each side was people that were parked, allowed to park, just to go to this event. So there is a great interest in these agricultural and horse activities, and we need to keep the fair, in particular, and the 4-H at this location. The 4-H is extremely important to the youth of Bayshore and Alva and Buckingham and any other agricultural areas that are left in this county. Keeping these communities agricultural is also important. The continuing rezoning of agricultural property eliminates the areas where kids can raise these horses and cows and chickens and pigs. You can't go to Cape Coral and raise them. You can't go to a gated community and raise them. So it's very important to keep this agricultural areas agricultural and not decide to develop them into more areas of gated communities where kids can no longer do this activity. We need to have public meetings in the evening when more people can come after work. You would have this place packed if you could people could get off of work to actually come to this, but they can't. So you need to have meetings at night. We need to have them planned so that people can have their input expressed. And we don't want this property to be sold for hotels and retail, and that was discussed 2 years ago. And this is something for sure we don't ever want to see happen out in agricultural Bayshore. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and did you want to speak as well? Great. Please come forward and just state your name for the record when you begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Carolyn Morton, owner of Bayshore Nursery right out there by the Civic Center. And I just want to say amen to the folks of my community that's already spoken. We do so much appreciate the Civic Center over there, everything that goes on. We have been involved with a lot of the activities, like the RV shows and all those different things. We are able to put our foliage out there. And we just really, really want to keep our Civic Center. I know there's a lot of repairs. I listened to a lot of the good stuff this morning, the money that's needed, and I'm all in 100% with you guys if you'll just stick with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We have one more speaker. Anybody else who wants to speak, just please stand by the door and we'll call you up afterwards.
Marcia Ellis, and I'm heartened today, and I feel bolstered to see members of the agricultural community out here defending our heritage and our legacy. As someone who participated in 4-H as a youth growing up, it taught me so many vital skills that also informed an interest in the sciences. And people don't realize the role of agriculture in these projects that the kids are participating in, preparing them for scientific inquiry and movement into the sciences and an interest in nature. The reason that I chose to speak again is because I really want to reiterate that there is a level of distrust in the community, in the agricultural community, with the Board of County Commissioners and the overrepresentation of development in the decisions and the erosion of the agricultural capacity in this community to provide for a sustainable future. And it alarms me that we're losing so much land to commercial developments, and that the processes of community involvement in those decisions are also being eroded. For instance, by speeding up the process to go directly from agricultural zoning to commercial zoning through the hearing commissioner rather than bringing those decisions in front of the board. And I just am,
You could just keep your comments on topic.
well, my comments
Kind of
are
like all over the place.
Yes, so I'm going to come back to that. So when I hear someone speak and they say that the Fair Board had brought forth an opportunity to renegotiate for another 5 years, I question the timing, because I see sometimes there being a bait and switch between an emergency, which is legitimate following a hurricane, and an opportunity for there to be a policy change. And that policy change may benefit development rather than the agricultural community. I think that this is an opportunity for some reflection and some self-examination about what we want our future to look like, and the role of agriculture and the sustainability our community can achieve when we have balance between agriculture and development. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this.
All right, I see Ron Hamill, one last speaker there. Mr. Hamill, if you'd like to come forward, that's. And if anybody else wishes to speak again, just stand by the door. We'll call you up.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Ron Hamill, and I was the Executive Director of Gulf Citrus Growers for 30-plus years. Now I'm working for President Martin as a representative of FGCU, Center for Agribusiness. Regarding the Civic Center, first I'd like to just say I appreciate the efforts that going into looking at the future of this facility. For 32 years, we held our Citrus Expo here, and we understand it's been canceled for this year, and it's in August. So we're very disappointed. In fact, the staff had to go, and I think they're negotiating with the state fairgrounds to host the event there this year. It's held in August, and it's a shame after 32 years we got to move upstate, because the industry here was very supportive of having it there and inviting people in. But with that said, looking at the future of this, I think comments relative to the ag area in our region, historically this area has been one of the strongest ag producers in the state of Florida, and I'd like, whatever the future of the center is, to take a look at how we can promote agriculture even more. I mean, could that host a ag museum? I mean, this area, historically, we used to ship cattle out of Punta Rassa. Streets are named Gladiolas. The industry, the center around this area was built on agriculture. So we need to maintain that focus. I think opportunity to do other events and stuff would be great to build in, but hopefully the heart of that center going forward could be looked at from an agricultural, rural Florida perspective. So with that said, I don't know if there's any hope of trying to bring that expo back in August. I saw where you're trying to fast track some of the repairs for the big facility is the issue. They looked at the Hertz Arena, they couldn't have it there. Because they didn't have enough space to bring in heavy equipment, tractors, ag stuff, implements. So anyway, with that said, I support what the motions are here. I'd strongly have y'all consider looking at fast tracking that center so that we could actually maybe bring that back, although they're negotiating with the state board now, the state fair board at the event. But thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hamill. All right. I see no further speakers then standing at the door, so we'll go ahead and close public comment at this time, and we'll come back to the board for further discussion on the motion. Any questions, anything else that they have?
If I can, I'd like
Commissioner
to
Greenwell?
ask, County Attorney Richard, since I was asked a direct question, can I answer that? Or should I answer that?
Mr. County Attorney, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, it's at the board's discretion. It's typically not the give and take portion of the meeting, but there's not a procedural rule that would bar it, so with the chair's discretion.
So, Commissioner, you're welcome to answer it if you want, or are you asking to bring the person back up, though?
No, I'm just
okay.
like to answer. I was asked a direct question. Could I say that was there? I'm one of 5 votes. My vote will be that 4-H stays on that property. It will not be in the same facility, though, because that facility is deteriorated. We're going to build something bigger and better where these kids have room to sell the animals, where we can invite a better portion of our community in to sell. It's time we do that. So they are going to get a new facility if my one vote matters. So there's your answer. Thank you for the question.
Very good.
Mr. County Attorney. At this point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so back to the board for discussion.
Chairman, would you mind asking Ms. Brady to read the
motion? I think that's a great, absolutely. So again, it was a 2-part motion. Ms. Brady, if you'd read the motion one more time again, just before we finish the discussion.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Authorize staff to initiate the process to make the life and safety repairs to the Civic Center building, as well as confirm county administration's authorization to the repairs of Tinsley Pavilion, Davidson House, the 3 barns which include the horse, beef, and swine barns, as well as the Grand Pavilion, to maintain the ongoing 4-H youth programs. Second part, authorize staff to begin negotiations with the Fair Board for the staging of the Southwest Florida Fair.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, would you mind, Mr. Motion Maker, to actually add in an amendment or consider an amendment
Absolutely.
to extend the sunset till 2024?
I don't think we can. Only reason I say that is there's so much that needs to get done to repair the building and get it back. We have more decisions in this life. I guess maybe I've studied it more, but
I guess my point is I'm not looking to not go forward with the motion.
Right.
What I'm hearing from the community is a sunset September 30th, and I'm looking to see if we could just extend that 12 more months so they don't feel compelled that we're not trying to work with them, if we can do that.
That was not my call.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, actually, it would be up to the motion maker to amend their motion, and the seconder is Commissioner Sandelli, if he'd like to amend it as well. It's completely at your discretion if you'd like to make that amendment.
Can I get a legal opinion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to point out from the parliamentarian point of view, as you've stated, it would be correct that Commissioner Ruane is asking the motion maker to amend. It's up to the motion maker's discretion as to whether they want to accept that amendment or not. If the motion maker does not want to accept the amendment, then presumably you could call a question on that motion, and then the floor would remain open for any subsequent action by the board.
So just for clarity, I'm in favor of Part A and Part B. The only part I'd like to add is C, is have the sunset occur in 24, not 23.
I'm not willing to change the motion.
Okay.
So just to clarify what the county attorney said, if the motion,
Folks, order, please.
if the county, like the county attorney, just for clarification, so if that motion stays as it is now and it fails, then somebody can make a new motion with the addition to that, correct?
Mr. County Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We already had a second, so we had to take a vote on that first.
Correct.
I have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor. So, all right, is there any further discussion on the motion on the floor then?
I just want to say thank you for everybody being involved today, and thank you for all the staff, Commissioner Greenwell, for bringing this up. You know, I think we all want life and safety issues fixed, and I totally support that 110%. I want to see, as you heard from me, I want to see Commissioner Greenwell, in fact, thank you for your comments about 4-H, to see the whole project, the whole facility be improved and expanded. We have 100 acres of a jewel asset there Lee County has. We want to be able to utilize that and expand that. So thank you for that. I do like Commissioner Wang's comments to try to facilitate through all the navigation of all this, trying to make sure, because I'm not sure how we can get all this done this year before September, the improvements and also continuation of working agreements. I have concerns about that. We heard from Araba and some other tenants are going to be coming there for events. I don't want to see us losing the events, but also don't want to spend too much money if we're going to, for example, tear the whole thing down and rebuild from the ground up. I don't want to invest too much more money other than what we're approving today. So thank you for your comments, Commissioner Wayne, for that.
Mr. Chair, just for some clarity, and I'm not trying to obviously offend my colleague I have the utmost respect for. I guess, when I look at a tenant situation, which I've been in for 30 years, I can more than appreciate and respect the dollars you talked about. As someone that meets a monthly rent of over $300,000 a month, it's 3.6 a year, 20 years, you can do the math. I've spent a lot of money as a tenant. As a tenant, we have certain expectations, whether it's air conditioners or anything else, but I'm not looking to have the building remodeled. It's the landlord's building. It's not mine. So I just feel a lot of pressure in trying to resolve the situations. I agree with Commissioner Greenwell. I want to see all the things take place. I just feel that time is really running out, and I just thought in a spirit of good faith, we would have this opportunity to try to resolve everything we're trying to do and not have the clock tick out. That was the only reason why I asked for the amendment. No disrespect at all to my fellow commissioner at all.
Very good. Commissioner Sandelli, did you have a comment? I wanted to make one as well. But.
Well, I think it would be appropriate that who's proposing the motion would either keep that or amend it based on the discussion. So are you looking to amend that?
So, no, Commissioner Sandelli, it's Commissioner Greenwell's motion that he made.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
He said no. Seconder, can go along with what exactly he posed or take your second back.
That's true.
I'll take the second back.
Okay, so the second has been removed. All right, well then, do we have a second to the motion that's on the floor?
But you removed your second from his motion? Oh.
So, okay, so we have a motion. The second has been removed. At this time, we would need another second in order to go forward, or this motion would die for lack of a second. Do we have a second? Okay, I hear no second, so the motion dies for lack of a second. At this time, then, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that was on the floor with an amendment that we actually extend the agreement to sunset in 2024 to allow us appropriate time to have discussions and continue to work with the tenant that's been there for 27 years.
Okay, so the motion is made by Commissioner Wayne. Does that motion have a second?
I'll second that.
That motion is seconded by Commissioner Sandelli. And so the motion is the same motion as we discussed earlier, just with an addition to extend the sunset date to September 30th of 2024. Yes.
My concerns are exactly what Commissioner Wayne brought out. When I look at the compression of time and the various elements that are out in play right now, I just don't think it's going to happen that way.
You have, yes, Commissioner Greenwell, you're recognized.
Problem, my understanding is right on, the problem with that motion is that not allowing us to take the operation of the facility over. We're repairing a facility that we're not in control of still by giving that extension. Our job is, or the staff's job is still to negotiate with the fair board to run the fair. That's what the motion is. The motion is they would still have the opportunity to negotiate with staff to run the fair, but they would not run the facility. The facility would be taken back over by the county so we can make the repairs and make decisions on what else needs to be repaired, because as we're stating, the life issues are not the only repairs that need to be made. They're the repairs that will allow us to open the building back up to the community, but we still have other repairs to make. So that's my understanding of the motion that I made, was to say, staff, we're directing you to negotiate for the fair beyond 2024 fair. You can negotiate it for 5 years. That's up to the board to negotiate, our staff to negotiate that. What I'm saying is this gives us control back of the facility. That's the motion I made. But your motion is taking that away, and we're going to give it back to them for 1 year without any negotiating. So we're going to go fix the buildings for life safety, but we're not in control of the other issues that are there. We're going to be in a position where we need to fix the other things, or we're going to have lawsuit after lawsuit out there. I don't think you fully understand what needs to get done out there. As you well know, I'm in the construction industry, and I walk around that place, and I know that we have issues that have to be fixed beyond these life safety issues. The building, there's this, so if you haven't walked through it, when the fair's not there, all the bright lights take your attention away from what's wrong. And that's my concern. So I want the board to understand, if you change that, if you take that motion up, you're giving it back to them and taking our opportunity back to fix these buildings. We're going to be obligated to fix them anyway. But we should have control of the facility and what goes on out there to make sure that it is safe for our community. That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. County Manager, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, if this motion, if you approve this motion, and I'm going to ask the county attorney to weigh in, if you extend the existing agreement for an additional year, then the Fair Board has the right to produce the fair without any position for us to negotiate. Richard, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. County Attorney, yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that you don't do that. I just want to make sure that everybody understands, what we're dealing with.
Wait, Roger, can you clarify, wasn't the original motion had that agreement already? They could negotiate the fair next year anyway?
The original motion included giving us authority to negotiate with Fair Board once the current agreement sunsets.
But it still include the fair. The fair was still going, because I know Commissioner Greenwell even specified that the fair would still go on. It just wouldn't give the property authority to run the property.
It would, but it would require negotiation on the part of Lee County and the Fair Board for the terms and conditions under a second agreement for that fair to be produced. With the extension of the existing agreement for 1 year, the Fair Board has the right to produce the fair and will not be required to negotiate with Lee County on the terms and conditions.
So,
Real quick, did you still want to add something, Mr. County Attorney, to that?
Mr. Chairman, board members, perhaps some clarification by dissection.
Sure.
We initially talked under the initial motion, as I understood it, was to direct certain repairs to be made. It was also to direct staff to negotiate for the conduct of the 2024 county fair. This motion, by merely extending the agreement until 2024, removes the singular ability of the county to direct and control the future physical improvements on that property. Any discussion with regard to those improvements would then be subject to negotiation, because those improvements would still be subject to the management agreement that was extended through 2024. Under either circumstance, under either motion, the 2024 fair at a minimum would take place.
So question, I guess I'm looking at this from a landlord-tenant point of view. What I'm trying to achieve is to do exactly what Commissioner Greenwell indicated, what Ms. Brady had indicated, that we obviously, in good faith, negotiate the fair. What I'm trying to do in good faith is to try to let the tenant have an opportunity to have some ability to continue to talk to us. Because when it sunsets, let's be clear, September 30th, we can do whatever we want to do. There's no more agreement whatsoever that exists. We have complete autonomy. Is that not correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. County Attorney.
With regard to the terms and conditions under the existing management agreement, with the exception of the conduct of the 2024 fair, that is correct.
So we would circumvent the sunset and just add in that we'll have the fair in 24, is what you're stipulating.
Mr. County Attorney.
Just trying to get clarity. I'm not a lawyer.
And I'm trying to get clarity on the
What I'm trying to achieve, maybe I'll restate it. What I'm trying to achieve is exactly what Assistant Manager Brady actually indicated. I want the fair to take place. I also am trying to have an opportunity in good faith, as someone that's been a tenant for a long time, to not have them feel abandoned in the situation. That's what I'm trying to achieve. Because to me, I get the fair, but the only thing that we're contractually obligated to do is the fair. Nothing else in October, November, December, just the fair. So in 23 to 24, we have an obligation to do the fair. Nothing else.
I don't.
Is that, am I stating that incorrectly?
Motion accomplishes that, though.
Huh?
I don't know that your motion accomplishes.
Okay.
If I may, indulge.
Sure.
Because it's a little less formal, but more casual, just to dialogue for a second. Sure. So I think your motion actually accomplishes, though, extending the full-on management agreement,
Gotcha.
which allows them to do all the other shows and everything else on top of just the fair. And so, yeah.
Valid attempt. I recognize my colleagues' discussion and input. What I'm trying to do is try to accomplish everything that you stated, Commissioner Greenwell. I want to see the fair take place. I also want us to continue to work with this group that's put 27 years in. I want to feel part of this process. So to me, as someone that's had a lease expire, that's basically what will take place. There's no obligation of the owner to do anything once the agreement expires, with the exception of the fair. That's what gives me consternation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. County Attorney.
If I may, please keep in mind, Commissioners, that you five sitting as the Board of County Commissioners are the owner of the property. You can direct the conduct of your staff with or without a written management agreement in place. So you could, just as you've directed that the 2024 fair will take place, that's clear direction to your staff, you could direct that certain other aspects take place, such as ongoing discussions with the Fair Association regarding the future use of that property, with or without the management agreement. Staff's going to listen to what the board tells it to do, with or without a management agreement. Commissioner Ruane, I fully understand the management agreement is a written agreement between two parties. All I'm suggesting is the board seems to be at an impasse, so to speak, with regard to the written management agreement. I'm merely suggesting an alternative by which I believe the board's intent could be accomplished without being bogged down over whether we need to extend the management agreement or not.
And you've done a much better job, and that's why you're a lawyer and I'm not. I'm really, what I'm trying to do is achieve something beyond the fair. Okay, I want to have us have this property. We want to continue to have the events. We want to make the improvements, and as the improvements are made, obviously, and the one issue that most people don't realize, and so I come from the private sector, I want you to all understand, when you go through procurement, we have a responsibility to go out and do this. So it's going to take more time than you'd like, might be 60 days. So when we talk about maybe not getting it done in 6 months, part of the time is being eaten up because we're required, okay, to go out to a procurement process. We're required to be fully transparent. In my company, I call a contract up and says, please start tomorrow. I don't have that luxury here, so part of the time that we're up against, and I feel your compassion, I feel exactly what you're going through, is the procurement's going to eat up part of the clock, and then we're going to have to do the improvements. So that's the 6 months we're looking at right now for September. I feel your sympathy. I'm trying to achieve exactly what you talked about, Commissioner Greenwell, but I also want to give them good faith that we're here to try to support the other activities, H and everything else, all the things that you know, and you know better. I just feel in good faith as a tenant, as someone that has paid $16 million, I'm trying to show them that we're good landlords as well.
Okay.
That's all.
Commissioner Pendergrass had a comment?
Just to clarify, and thank you, Commissioner Ray, for bringing that up, and I totally understand Commissioner Greenwell's concerns. I have the same concerns too. If you don't want a catwalk to fall on people that's below at a show or something, and somebody gets hurt, we get sued over it. But Attorney Wesch, so this current motion is on the floor now. Does that hinder us, as you stated though before, which I understand the charter, there's five of us, and we could bring up this issue in the future for like more improvements, more enhancements. We can direct staff 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, a year from now, even during the agreement process, as stated in the current motion, we could do more improvements or bring it back for another board vote discussion to put on the agenda for a blue sheet, correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Mr. County Attorney.
If you extend the agreement, those type repairs would then be subject to negotiation and discussion with the Fair Association.
Which they've already said today, they're willing to help pay for some of those current ones now, the $200,000 they said at the podium today. I'm just saying.
Understand, yes. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. County Attorney.
if I may,
Yes.
take a shot.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
And you've not shot the messenger before, so please don't start now. Perhaps a motion along the lines of the terms and conditions of the original motion made by Commissioner Greenwell, which includes the items as presented by Assistant County Manager Brady, direction to county staff that the 2024 fair will take place on the subject property, and direct staff to work with the Fair Association to coordinate future activities with needed repair work from until a date certain that you would pick, whether that be September 30th, 2024 or beyond.
So I had the last question. I just want to thank you for the comments and motion, but this is the second motion we required from the staff, from your office now, from the staff. I'm not really sure why we're not making our motions, but we have a motion on the floor, we have a second. If somebody wants to amend that, that's obviously we have the right to do it, but we've already had this discussion. We've already had two motions now. There was one earlier scripted now with this one. So I understand we're trying to get one place here, but I'm just trying to be totally transparent and I think in good faith. We should try to show, I think, Commissioner Wings.
I'm more than willing to remove my motion. I like your suggestion. If we could tweak it with a couple of more things in that is understand all the agreements. In our best faith, we'll continue to try to have the events that we've had in the past take place. Our best efforts to have the events that take place, that have taken place in the past, will take place in the future. So not just the 100-year fair, whatever else that we can, once the buildings are up to date.
So, Chairman, if I may. So the motion, that's what I think I was trying to explain, is if the motion is made the way Ms. Brady made the motion, then it basically means in September, their management of the facility would come back to the county. So the dollars, our tax dollars that are being spent to repair the facility to operate would be not only obviously our responsibility, but it also would give us control on what we're going to be able to do in the future. Meaning we would have control of building the 4-H facility bigger and better. That would be decisions that we would be able to make as a board. Under the current agreement, we would have to negotiate with them. So that is my concern. So let me add, so if I may finish it. So under this, the motion that was made is we're just directing staff to negotiate. And if I'm clear, or if I'm understanding it right, they would negotiate with the fair to run the fair next year for 24. As a board, we would have input on that with the staff on the negotiations of running the fair. Am I correct in that? Or is it 100% staff making the agreement and then we vote on the agreement?
Well, I think that's a great question, and maybe Mr. DeJoly and Mr. Wesch could both address it. Is just what do you? So I think the problem that I'm hearing from everybody is we're trying to make a motion up on the fly, and typically we have a nice blue sheet where the backup and analysis and everything is all written out for us. So one option too we may want to consider is just do we want to direct staff to prepare a blue sheet and a motion to come back at our next meeting that we can all read and vote on? That's one option. But so yes, what do you envision the timeline looking like if we pass the motion that's on the floor today, which would be, again, to authorize all of the life safety repairs to the Civic Center and everything like that? It was to negotiate with the Fair Board for the 24 fair. And did you amend your motion officially
So yes, I mean, I obviously, what I'm looking to do and listening to, whether it's a gun show, whether it's citrus, whether it's whatever, I want those events to take place in our best efforts as well. What I'm hearing in the motion, which just troubles me, is we're going to do the fair, and that's really what we're saying. I'm not saying we can't have a discussion later on. I just want to hear in good faith we're going to try to have other events.
So the current motion then extends the management for till 2024.
No, I actually pulled that back.
You pull that back?
I did, and I like what Mr. Wesch indicated. I mean, I like what he indicated, everything about it. Okay. The only thing I was asking for is, if I'm not mistaken, and I appreciate what Commissioner Greenwell did, we're obligated for the fair in 24 We honestly have discretion up here to have discussions about any other events. All I'm trying to do is just give the people in good faith that we're going to try to have those events. And it'll just be a discussion we'll have, obviously, as part of it. I'm not obligating us. I'm not looking to not have this sunset. I just want everyone to feel that it is in your best interest, my best interest. We want to see the Triple H. We want to see the citrus. We want to have other things that go on there.
Real quick, does the seconder agree with the amendment that's been made to the motion?
If I may, the motion that was made was not for us to, the motion wasn't to sunset in September. That has already been determined previous to this. The motion was to grant the repair on the facility for $370. Am I correct in that?
No.
Yeah, Mr. County Attorney,
Did we sunset this last meeting?
as our parliamentarian, yeah.
As I understand the current state of affairs, the motion maker, Commissioner Ruane, has rescinded his motion.
He's completely rescinded, so there is no motion.
Therefore, you have no motion.
No motion on the floor, okay, all right.
The
So
question for clarity, at the last meeting, did this agreement already sunset?
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. County Attorney.
This agreement, the management agreement, will expire by its own terms September 30th of 2023, with no further action needed.
So it expires on its own. We didn't make a decision last week for it, last meeting to sunset. It just expires on its own.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for the clarity. Sorry for the confusion, gentlemen. Trying to achieve what we need to, and I'm trying to be sympathetic as a tenant.
Real quick, if I may. So.
And I love your idea, Commissioner.
Yeah, we'll try and land this plane here. So, you know, this is not news to anybody on the Fair Board that this sunset was out there for September 30th. When the last renewal was done last year, that was in there. The sunset was in there. So there's been a year's notice on the sunset. In fact, for the last 2 years, we've been renewing it. If my memory serves me correct, the last 2 years, we've been renewing it 1 year at a time.
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. So not a surprise that we've been operating kind of on a year-to-year basis right now. Kind of sometimes when leases get to the end, you go month to month even. And gosh, not to throw that in there as a possible scenario, but maybe you could even look at a month-to-month extension too. But I think because there are so many scenarios that need to be studied here, and it is very hard to make up a motion on the fly that really honors the amount of public comment that we've had today and the eyes that are on it, I would definitely support a motion to direct our staff to take the comments they've heard today from both the board and the public and prepare a motion that can come back to us at our next meeting. I do understand that delays things 2 weeks, but I think at this point we might be here for the next 2 weeks. So.
Listen, I agree with you, Commissioner Hammond. Making motions on the fly is very difficult. What I'm trying to do is capture the spirit of what the participants have come up in public comment. What I'm trying to do is make sure we capture all the things we want to, in good faith, indicate that we're listening. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And I apologize if there was any confusion as a result of it. That's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to be a good listener, be a public servant that's been here, been around the process. And I agree with you. I hate motions on the fly. So.
I'll have one more comment.
Commissioner Sandelli.
I agree. I come from the same world in many respects as Commissioner Wayne. I think our mission is always the life safety of the properties that we control. So for all the work that was done for that and all the study, I absolutely agree with that. On the other side, assets have the facility and they have the tenants. And I think that's where I gravitated towards what Commissioner Wayne was, is how do we honor both? And I think that probably the best way to do that is to do a redraft.
If I have a question.
Commissioner Pendergrass.
This is for the county manager. So we've hearing all this discussion today, and thank you for all your staff been working on this. So if the first motion passed and we took over the facility after October, in October, November, for example, MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, had an event at the Civic Center, who would they contact to host their event at the Civic Center? As all these other events coming forward after September, would that be your county staff, Parks and Rec? Who would be facilitating, hosting, and preparing the facility and managing it on day-to-day operations? Do you have the staff currently now that would be able to do that?
Mr. County Manager, yes.
Commissioner, that would be county staff.
Okay. Are you, I think some of the recommendations already been from your offices that was not gonna, you were not gonna finalize this agreement with the Fair Board after September, so you were prepared to do that anyway for staff reasons. So we have the staffing for that, correct?
We have the staff that manages events on all of our venues. If we take over management of the Civic Center property, we'll have to add, Chris, did we would have to add 3 positions.
Okay, thank you. Oh, out of Commissioner Hammond's comments to Chairman, I like the idea of preparing more of a structured, more information so we're totally transparent. We show in good faith. We actually have more information before we vote on it. So I would yield to the district commissioner if he chooses to make that motion. If he doesn't, then I'll see if somebody else does. I'll be happy to make that motion otherwise.
I'll make a motion that we wait till we get more discussion and bring it back to the board in 2 weeks.
So basically, the motion is to direct the staff to prepare an agenda item for our next meeting? Okay.
I'll second that.
And the motions from Commissioner Greenwell and the seconds from Commissioner Ruane. Mr. County Manager, does that give you, in context of the conversation we've had, the direction you
Mr.
need?
Chair, we're getting really close.
Okay.
We would like also for you to give us permission to start the necessary repairs that are outside the signature authority of my office.
That's what I was going to add was, I didn't get a chance to, was would that delay in 2 weeks, would it stop the health and safety issues of repairs? I would want to still see that continued.
Okay.
So that would not stop that at all.
Does the motion maker wish to add that into his motion to
I will add that into
start the
I
necessary?
will gladly second that. I want to see the repairs move forward.
All right, very good.
Okay, Commissioners, and then based on the totality of your conversation today, we really have a few elements here. One is to ensure that the fair takes place next year. The second one is to ensure that the 4-H program remains solvent and in good shape on the property. And then thirdly is we start the process of making the life safety repairs with the understanding that ultimately that's a fairly short-term fix, probably in the neighborhood of a year by the time it's all said and done.
Okay.
Have I captured it properly?
Yes, so, and then you're going to prepare a blue sheet on the greater
Yes, sir.
Future related to the negotiations and things like that?
We will.
And I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate us working through something hard, obviously, and I guess really what I was trying to accomplish is, in the spirit of everything we heard up here, I want to make sure that it all gets captured in the blue sheet.
Is everybody happy? Is there any further discussion before we take a vote on this motion? Okay. Are there any objections to the motion that's on the floor? Oh, yes, Mr. County Attorney.
You have a new motion, therefore public comment is required.
You want to go through public comment again?
Well-
So you don't, so you are required to do public comment with each motion or just the topic?
The decision that the board is going to make, so it's evidenced by the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. County Attorney, for keeping us all legal. That's very important. So the motion is on the floor. Could somebody restate it for me, just so that they know what they're speaking on? It was to direct staff to prepare an agenda item for our next meeting, but in the meantime, begin making the immediate life safety fixes. That's it, and it's been properly motioned and seconded. All right, at this time, if you'd like to speak in public comment, you don't have to, but you're welcome to. You could raise your hand. Please just state your name for the record. Thank you.
Hi, Fran Crone. All right, so again, according to the current agreement, it sunsets, but it can be extended upon mutual agreement. The Fair Board has made that request. So that is a whole different issue for you to consider with all of this. The other thing is that if you choose to sunset it, does that mean that the Fair Board has to have all of their property removed from the grounds by September 30th? The Fair Board owns every table, every chair, every computer, every desk, every wrench, every high lift, every forklift. The county owns nothing except the shell of the buildings and the property, and I think the hood in the kitchen. So these are details that have to be worked out when making this decision. If it's going to sunset and you're not going to vote on it, you're just going to let it go, that's your prerogative. But the board needs to know what the plan is. If you give it another year to sunset and you make yourself clear that that's the sunset date, then the board has time to make plans and arrangements for their own business. These men are a business group. They have been good partners. If you rented a house, you would not expect, thank you, Mr. Rain, to have to put a roof on it. That's what the landlord does. The Fair Board has maintained the county's property. They have built, they have improved it, and I just think it's only fair. They've made a request of the board, board to board. It's not a county, it's not a staff decision whether or not it gets to sunset. It is a county vote, and I ask you to consider that, please.
Thanks for your comments. Any further comment? Mr. Crone.
County Commissioners, Randy Crone again. Talking about the building, the county owns this building. This is your property. We help manage it. So my thing about this is it sunsets on the 30th of 2023. And Mr. Ruin, thank you for your comments. But even if you do a new agreement, it's still your building. If you want to fix it, you can fix it. We're not going to tell you not to fix it. We want it fixed. Obviously we do. But who's going to mow it? There's a lot of things. Those pipes break all the time out there. We're there to fix them. If the county's not there every single day to look at those pipes, you're going to have water bill. There's a lot of things that go on out there for managing that property. So there's a lot of reasons to keep us there to help you do that. You're not going to use the fair office, so why not keep us there for another year using the fair office and still doing the fair things that we do, having the barns. Otherwise, we have to leave the property and have to ask you to come back on to meet and do tagging. We have to ask you to come on and do some 4-H stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes on all year long to keep this fair going. But again, it's your property, it's your building. We are never going to tell you that you can't work on that because we want you to work on it. We want it to be a great partners. For 27 years, we've been great partners. We can be great partners as long as you guys want us to be. But we're here for the community. This is about the community, not about this commission, not about this fair board. It's about what's good for the community. And I think continuing to work together, continuing to be great partners, we can continue to do that for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further comments then? Just raise a hand. Okay, come on.
Amanda Cochran. I think one of the aspects that the board, I haven't heard discussed, is that since they've been running it for 27 years, there is thousands and thousands of hours of volunteers that donate their time, which it's money. Volunteer hours equals money. So if they're no longer running it and the county's running it, I don't know that you guys have volunteers that will donate thousands of hours of time, which will equal money from us in order to cover those volunteer hours. I'm going to assume that a lot of the people behind me are volunteers. If we have to put 3 people on to run it, that's 3 salaries. That's taxpayer money. I'm just totally confused as to why, since they have run it with audits that have showed exemplary performance with neglect by the county, why we can't work together at this point and let them keep running it because they have such in-depth 27-year knowledge of the property to allow them the opportunity for the first time to work together with the county and continue to run the property. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, raise your hand. We've got more speakers. Okay, good deal. Let's go with Mr. Richter, and then I think Mr. Maloney, and then Mr. Ballard.
I know you guys are navigating the mic.
I really appreciate you, Clerk, for pointing that out.
I hate to drag this on any further. I would just go back to one request I had, which was to involve the public in a workshop along with this amendment. That'll solve all these issues you're tangled up in right now, and all we don't know who to please and how this is going to work out. I get it. Bring in the public. There's a lot of people that don't have a financial interest in it other than possibly getting a little money for their sons or daughters' livestock. take out the people that have financial interest in this decision and let the public weigh in on it. And I think you'll find the answer is there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right, Mr. Maloney, and then Mr. Ballard.
Hi, Brad Maloney is my name. Just had a quick question. Through the survey and everything and all the great ideas that's been in the survey, I assume that one of those will be selected at some point. Would the extension of the management for another year delay any potential redevelopment that the board wants to do? Would your hands be tied that you'd have to wait the next 16, 18 months before you could do anything?
Yeah, we typically don't do questions and answers right now, but we can maybe ask that in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Maloney. Mr. Ballard?
Commissioners, I don't think right now the big question is, well, it is a big question. Number one, vote for getting the repairs done immediately. And instead of maybe coming back in 2 weeks to try to determine Fair Board or county, maybe we need to have a nighttime work session, just like you did when you approved the redirecting the districts, where you opened it at night, where you could get a well-rounded thing. Maybe need to do that to determine if the Fair Board's going to run it or if the county's going to run it. But get repairs done. Vote right now to get those repairs done. If you don't do the repairs, you haven't got nothing to do anyhow.
Thank you. All right, any further comments on this item? Okay, Mr. Fuel? And if you do want to comment, if you could, again, just go stand by the door and I'll just call you up one by one.
Well, it occurs to me that if the Fair Board is no longer going to be the management unit for managing the Civic Center, and all of our equipment goes, the chairs and a lot, you're not only talking 3 staff members, but you have to buy chairs, tables, equipment to facilitate the events that are going to take place there. We're doing it for free, and as a taxpayer, free is good as compared to taxes going up to pay for expenses incurred because you want to run the Civic Center. That's just my question. Why would you throw out the baby with the bathwater? I mean, we're taking care of the needs right now. We've been good stewards of the facility for 27 years. I don't understand what the problem is here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, any further comments? All right, I see no more speakers, so we'll close public comment. We had the motion and the second on the floor. Any further discussion then, now that we've heard public comment or anything?
No, I guess the last point, and we can close this, is I was trying to think as a tenant, I respect the comments that were made. As a tenant, I vacated property to have a new landlord ask me to come back in a month and put the property back in. So I was thinking about that. It's the only comment I made.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I see no further discussion. Oh, Commissioner Sandeli? No, okay. All right, are there any objections to the motion on the floor? Okay, I see no objections. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, does that conclude your county manager items?
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. County manager items are concluded. Do we have any county attorney items?
Oh, no. No, thank you, Mr.
All right. At this time, we've taken, we're on public presentation of matters by citizens. This is your opportunity to comment on anything that was not on the agenda today. I have 3 speakers. Marsha Ellis. Okay. How about William Romick from Septic Sucks? And then Alan Bills will be after him.
Good afternoon. My name is William Romig, and I'm here today on behalf of Septic Sucks, a citizen-led effort calling on state and county elected officials to address the septic systems that are polluting our water. Over the past several months, we have spoken to hundreds of members of our community, and one thing has remained constant. Residents want to protect their waterways. They want our state to remain beautiful and have the pleasures of enjoying our great springs, rivers, and world-class beaches. They want to see thousands of tourists come to our state and continue to see the economic growth with tourism dollars that help make our economy flourish. They have learned that the #1 pollutant of our waterways is septic tanks. They don't want to see our dead fish, dolphins, and manatees because of algae growth that leads to red tide. They don't want to have to hear tales of small businesses going under because tourists decide to pass on our state for those out west. As we've spoken to hundreds of people around our region, one thing has become clear. Most people have no idea the environmental dangers old septic systems pose to our water, our health, and our state. Our elected leaders should be doing everything in their power to protect the health and safety of our residents. We call on this county commission to work to help residents like Sarah, who want to do their part in keeping our waterways clean by banning future septic tank projects or require that they contain nutrient removal technology, and working with the state government to help fund these replacements and upgrades. The future of our state and our water rely on this work, and we ask for your support to fight for a healthy future. I know I am proud to be born and raised in Florida, and I know everyone here is lucky to call this great state their home. We just need to work together to make sure our children and grandchildren can enjoy this amazing state too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for your comment. Alan Bills, and if there's any more speakers after Mr. Bills, again, just line up by the door and I'll go ahead and give you a call.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you very much for your time. My name's Alan Bills. Again, my topic is House Bill 735. I want to thank each and every one of you, along with our county attorney, for all your support. It's been a long year and a half for me, wondering whether I'm still going to have a business after 30 years. I feel like we're getting close. I'm hoping that maybe there'll be a little bit of input towards that, but I do feel like we're getting closer. The state, well, I can't speak a whole lot for them, but I've tried. I've talked to many people involved in the state representatives, Don Shaw, State Licensing Board, many people. Misinterpretation is all I get. You know, oh, the county's got power to do this, so, you know, they can do that. Whatever. It's always just beat around the bush. Nothing in writing. I've asked several times. Nobody can even provide me with an email saying that. But I had Mike G. Lombardo, state representative from Cape Coral, at a delegate meeting say directly to my face that it was BS. There is no words in that law that says that the counties cannot issue licenses. I said, well, I guess I'll just have to take you for a man as your word, because getting something in writing from you seems like a lost cause. I haven't got a return phone call out of 25. But anyhow, I just want to thank you again very much for your support. It means a lot to me and my family, and 2,400 other specialty contractors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Very good. All right, does anybody else wish to speak this morning? All right, seeing no further speakers, we'll move to the workshop update. Mr. Desjardins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At 1:30 today, we will be working with you in a workshop to discuss utility fee structure.
Very good. At this time, we'll take public comment on today's workshop regarding the utility rate structure. Does anybody come to speak on that? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Is there any further business before us? Mr. County Manager, any further business before us?
I'm sorry.
Seeing no further business before us, we're adjourned then? All right,
good.
great.
Thank you.
We are adjourned. Thanks. We'll see